Good evening and welcome to the May 16, 2022 school board meeting. Could we all please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
As the chairman of the board, I just want to welcome everyone and to let everyone know that hasn't been at a board meeting before, that this year I suffered a profound hearing loss, and 3 weeks ago I got a cochlear implant that's not turned on yet. So board member Vice Chair Lori Peters chairs the meetings, and just in case someone's wondering why, that's why.
Thank you. I'd also like to mention tonight that board member Jenna Hardy is excused. All right, we will start with our public participation. As you come to the microphone, please state your name and address for the record. If you are a student, please just state your name and state that you are a student. You do not need to share your address with us. So I open the floor to public participation.
Hi, good evening. My name's Heather Robitaille, 45 Springfield Circle. I just wanted to come before the board again tonight and ask that you reconsider taking public comment by email. Originally, the board had made the decision to allow community members to participate via email because of COVID and numbers, and knowing that a number of people in the community weren't comfortable being physically present. As the numbers dropped, that was rescinded, and we know numbers are on the rise, but I'm not here in front of the board tonight to ask you to make a change because of COVID. I'm here standing in front of you because I recognize that I'm truly lucky that I've been able to be here physically for these meetings and have my voice shared and heard in a public forum so that members of our community watching at home can hear me. For those of us in the community who may be single parents, having different custody schedules, work schedules, caring for a sick loved one, caring for someone who is disabled or having a disability themselves, it may not be reasonable for those members of our community to be here physically to share their voice and to share their opinions with you. And I feel like it would be to the detriment of our community for the board to not consider having those voices shared as they had been previously via email. I appreciate that the board takes the time to read all correspondence that comes to you. I'm sure there is a lot, and I appreciate that. But stating in a meeting that you received correspondence regarding a certain topic does not have the same impact as having someone read your words and share your sentiment. I personally, as a community member, have benefited and learned from hearing the opinions and the comments from our other community members, and I would just like to ask the board to reconsider having public comment by email, recognizing that this can diminish the voices of our community in specific demographics, and I'm sure none of us want to see that happen, and I'm standing to ask you maybe in a future board meeting, put that as an agenda item, something to discuss to help our community be as engaged as we can in this important forum. Thank you.
Chuck Moore, 4 Depot Street. This is on. Okay. This is my first opportunity to wish everybody a new beginning and a new year with the administration and a new board with new opportunities. And I want to assure you that as chairman of the School District Budget Committee, I look forward to forging a closer relationship with the board, and that we might work more closely together on the things that are of importance as we move forward. One of the things that you're going to be discussing this evening is your goals and objectives, and I would encourage you to focus your charge and find those items that are most important that you might best start off with and avoid unnecessary entanglements. That's just the voice of experience that I offer to you. We have so much work ahead of us. There is much to be done. And from my standpoint, and I believe the Budget Committee standpoint, first and foremost, we are very much wanting to embrace a full application of competency assessment and competency standards throughout the school district. Not only is that an important tool for measuring what our students actually know, but it also gives us the ability to reduce the dropout rate to 0. That's something I think to work toward. It's of the utmost importance in the conduct of our school business, I think. I would also like to remind you that we are in desperate need of an SAU facility, which has laid to rest far too long under the conditions that we suffer. And I know that you have so many lists of your own. So I encourage you to dig in, work hard. Please call on me in any way that I can help you and support the school district, because ultimately it all takes money. Congratulations.
Seeing no one else, and to remind you that you can come up and speak again at the end on agenda items if you would like to comment as well. All right, we're going to move on to recognitions.
Well, we have a wonderful recognition tonight, and Laura and I will be presenting some certificates of recognition. We have the infamous Chop Shop 166 with us tonight, an outstanding robotics team who have recently competed in Houston for the first World Championship. The first acronym stands for Inspiration and Recognition of Science and Technology. And we're here to recognize you and tell you how proud we are of you. Innovation is extraordinarily important to our country and to the world. And sustained innovation brings about sustained product development, sustained employment, and therefore a higher standard of living for many people, not only in this country, but around the world. And so by your activities, your innovation and your creativity, you have set the bar very high. And we're looking forward to future competitions. And right now, the chair of the school board and I would like to present you with your certificates of recognition, and we are extremely proud to be able to do so. All right.
Come on. This way you guys can be on the camera.
So when I read your name, come right up to Superintendent Olson and walk this way. All right, we're going to start with the team. Jeffrey Burke, co-captain. Samantha Poyer, co-captain. Lucas Algeyer. Austin Boroto. Faith Burke. Nathan Cargill. Olivia Diaz. Angel Feliciano. Shane Gilbert. Joseph Janicki. Aiden Koss. Nathaniel McGregor. Brady Malone. Sean Mishk. Noah Motel. Christian Page. Timothy Paquin. Alexander Pelczar. And Ava Pelletier. All right, we'd like to take a moment to thank the mentors of this team, starting with Benjamin Beauregard. Al Baressa. Aiden Cox. Davin Gage. Connor McBride. And Matthew Susi.
Must apologize. I remember signing the certificate for Matt. And somehow between my office and here, it disappeared. Sure, if you would. So you guys have your We have a couple of words, if that's okay. Sure. Can I ask you a question for that?
few members probably want
Who thought up the school socks? Whose idea was that?
It's been a tradition for a few years now.
Is that right? They look great. So I think the co-captains wanted to say a couple of things. You ready?
Good evening. My name is Sammy Poirier, and this is Jeffrey Burke. As you know, we are the co-captains of Chop Shop, the Merrimack High School robotics team. We would like to start by thanking you all for your support towards our team. The effort that you put into helping the clubs at MHS does not go unnoticed. Through your support, we were able to travel safely and comfortably to our competitions. We also were able to have equipment and space for building our robots and funding to help with our expenses. Without this support, we would not have been able to compete successfully this year.
We started this year off with 6 team members, and through effective recruiting, we brought our team member count to 25, and we currently have 16 active students. We didn't know how this season would go, but this turned out to be one of the most successful seasons that our team's ever had. Once we found out what this year's competition was going to be, we spent about 6 weeks designing and building what turned out to be a very competitive and robust robot. With the effective strategy that we developed at our 2 competitions, we were chosen as a first pick during Alliance selection. Our other 2 competitions, we were Alliance captains, one of which being at the first World Championship. We placed 8th out of the 76 teams on our field at the World Championship. This qualified us as an Alliance captain, and out of the 28 years we've been a team, this is our first time being Alliance captain at the World Championship.
We won the 2 most prestigious awards at our district levels. These are known as the Chairman's and Engineering Inspiration Awards. We also won the Entrepreneurship Award at the district level out of 40 teams on our field. With our placement in the New England District, we were able to reach the World Championship in Houston, Texas. We were unsure of how we would do this during the season, so it was quite the accomplishment for us to qualify and attend the first World Championship. We have some medals as a token of appreciation for you guys.
Thank you. Thank you.
Again, we would like to thank you for your support and funding. Without this, we would not have been able to accomplish these tasks.
May I just say one thing, Lori? I have to say, there is reason for us to have great optimism about the future of our country and the world with all of you before us right now. You are outstanding. You are the best of the best, and I congratulate you.
So proud. This entire community is just so proud of what you guys have done, and the first to do it in such a long time. You should be really proud of yourselves, and I hope you are. Thank you for doing what you do. And like Mr. Olson said, I'm just so inspired by you guys, so thank you.
And as someone who has a family full of STEM folks, it excites me to see so many students excited about science and technology. And it is reassuring for the future to see so many wonderful faces. And congratulations on recruitment. Club recruitment is always something every club has to challenge, and it's a hurdle to overcome, and you guys did. So great job even on recruitment and continuing this great tradition. I have no doubt you guys are getting ready for awesome things, and you've accomplished so much. Just congratulations for all you've done this year.
Finally, there are so many skills that you learn through this: critical thinking, leadership, problem solving, communication, innovation, frustration. Someone would have to step up, something would break down, you're tired, you're hungry, and you came together, and we're very proud of all the things that you brought Merrimack, and this is going to give you a lifetime memory. And you know, school, sometimes we think of classrooms, but sometimes it's outside those classrooms where we get the best lessons. So good job.
Now, let's give one more round of applause for the team. All right, moving on.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on
Thank
to
you.
the next agenda item, informational updates.
Thank you.
We'll start with the superintendent update.
Well, we are in the home stretch. Fewer than 30 days left to the school year. It's been a very good year, and I want to thank our administrators, our staff, both professional and support staff, who have done wonders again this year in the face of the COVID pandemic that continued throughout the school year. And so I want to congratulate everyone for having a very successful school year. Just one brief announcement. On Saturday, May 7th, 4 members of the Merrimack Middle School Concert Band and 1 member of the chorus participated in the New Hampshire Music Education Association South Central District Honor Band and Chorus Festival. Congratulations to them. And I had a couple of other notices, and I think I mixed them in with something, so if I can find them, I'll mention them as we go through the meeting, if you don't mind.
Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum update.
Thank you very much. We'll have 2 presentations this evening, and we've had the Science Committee meet to be working on revisions of the Science Committee, including the Next Generation Science Standards and identifying essential learning competencies, and following that, we'll develop performance tasks that will be common assessments for all students, which is really exciting. Our Social Studies Committee is making really great progress working on their curriculum. And I gave a brief report out to the NEAS Committee this morning around the curriculum initiatives district-wide.
Assistant Superintendent for Business Update.
Yeah, thank you. May 9th, we had a meeting with the School District Planning and Building Committee. Myself, Steve Keach, owner of Keach Nordstrom Associates, our civil engineers, and Tom Tussaud met with the School District Elected Planning and Building Committee to go over a preliminary schematic of what we have envisioned as the high school redesign master plan. It includes kind of an improved traffic flow, a more welcoming campus environment. It includes obviously a spot for a new central office. That's not the focal point right now. It's the high school proper and your approach to it and what kind of impression you're going to get. It includes taking Brentwood Drive, which is between the Red House and the Blue House. It includes demolishing the Red House, known as Brentwood, and putting a roadway through there to connect up with Woodbury going down the hill. Seeing that road has been rehabilitated, it's been widened. The town put a lot of money into that. It also has a sidewalk. It's a natural flow of traffic to connect that to the high school parcel. We presented that. We'll have more detail for you once everything's sketched out. This summer, we want to do a full survey, then we'll get some really detailed plans to show what we're talking about. A lot of it is, one of the main key components is to take all of the overhead wiring and everything like that and bury it so it just disappears, kind of like what we did at Mastercola Elementary School a few years ago, if you remember that project. It was all overhead lighting on telephone poles, and quite frankly, it wasn't very appealing. The parking lot itself was kind of, if it was a rainstorm and you walked in that parking lot, you would get water inside your shoes. It was up over your ankles because of the drainage. So we actually elevated that parking lot around good 5 feet to bring it up to where the Smith Gym entrance is. And plus, we buried all the utilities, put some nice looking lighting in there, got away from the telephone poles with those long kind of spindly arms, that you're used to seeing in like a city or something like that. And it really kind of sparked the whole area. And we hope to do the same with the high school campus redesign. We're looking to, like I said, get Steve to do a schematic, some more input from the Planning and Building Committee, and then we'll start taking input from the school board. It's not ready. I can give you a preview. I could put it online with some descriptors, but I'm kind of a little leery at this point for people to say, well, what's that doing there and what's this doing? Jumping to conclusions because they don't really understand everything. So we're gonna take it slow. We have been taking it slow. It was delayed because of COVID. And when you had COVID, you didn't have the number of cars and traffic and buses and everything like that. So you couldn't really see firsthand how the whole area was exceedingly dysfunctional in its distribution and end of day departure of all those involved, including parents picking up their kids and students leaving the facility and bus traffic trying to make its way. It was a lot of convergence of stuff that managed to sort itself out, but it wasn't good enough, and it's not good enough. So we want to look at that. The next step after that would be to go in front of the Budget Committee, go back to the Planning and Building Committee, and I did kind of give the Town Center Committee a peek at this, Nelson Disco and crew. They were very pleased because it includes a sidewalk on O'Gara Drive all the way up headed towards the high school, which they really want as a part of the town center committee. That's been something that's been on their radar for a good 10 years, I would say. And we've kind of been putting it off until we can come up with a whole plan that incorporates a proper sidewalk in the correct location with the proper width, because we'd like a little wider than normal type sidewalk with some nice hardscape lighting built into it. We'd like to take away the guardrails. We'd like to get rid of all that kind of feel to it. And hopefully, it's a plan. It's something that's going to evolve over the years. There'll be a stage 1, stage 2, stage 3. We're not looking to do this all at once because our window of opportunity for construction is 6 weeks in the summertime. So you can only do so much at 6 weeks in the summertime, and that's without rain. So we're working it, and we look forward to continuing the process and presenting to you after our next meeting, after Steve dresses up all the drawings, and then we can make a formal presentation. So I'm really kind of excited in that. It's been a few years in the making. The board was kind enough to encumber the money over into this budget year, and so we're moving ahead. So whatever we do, it's going to be a coherent plan. It's going to be planned out. No more patchwork for us. We're done with that. We want to see it all down in a coherent, nice, flowing pattern that when you drive up to the high school, you're going to say, this is Merrimack High School. Because as they say, your high school basically, we have all our other schools are absolutely tremendous. But the high school is your flagship of your district. And we want it to look that way. And we want it to give the impression to everybody who comes from this town to visit the high school, who walks around the high school at night and on the weekends and you see them, and from visiting towns that come to do sports here or competitions or whatever. So that's the goal. So we're really excited about that. So thank you very much.
And thank you, Lori. I found my notes.
I was wasting time for you.
I could tell that, Matt. Thank you very much. This past Saturday, according to Sarah Campbell, one of our great high school staff members, the Granite State Challenge team faced a very powerful Portsmouth team in the finals. The score was close in 3 out of the 4 rounds, but Portsmouth had a breakaway second round, which brought them to the championship. And though the Merrimack team came up just short, this is the fourth trip, to the finals in the last 10 years, as well as being the 3rd year in a row that the team made it to the final round. So another outstanding effort by our students. I want to recognize Jack Pecora, Iris Corman O'Reilly, Ali Pecora, Rainier Murray, and Kishan Srinivasan for their outstanding efforts. And also on Sunday, some of the same students participated in the New Hampshire Quiz Bowl League. Group managed to go undefeated on the day, beating 4-year reigning state champ Hanover on a tiebreaker question to secure the victory. And once again, Jack Pecora, Rainier Murray, Iris Corman O'Reilly, and Rainier Murray did an outstanding job. And so we congratulate them. I have a feeling probably Kishan Srinivasan was part of that group also. From Marcia McGill and Nikki Rowe at JMU, we want to congratulate and recognize band teacher Bunny Saranita, who has been awarded the 2022 Outstanding Band Director Award by the New Hampshire Band Directors Association. So there is great reason to be very proud of what our students are accomplishing, what our staff is accomplishing, and the leadership and mentorship that our staff provides to our students. So congratulations to everyone.
All right, school board update.
So our first ever goals meeting will be on June 28th at Buckley's. We are still trying to get Primex to come to facilitate the meeting. I did go to the Building and Planning Committee meeting that Matt was talking about, and I just want to say that many of the members of that committee have been longtime members, and that meeting was just very exciting because we have a lot of really great ideas, and there's going to be some really good changes coming to the whole master plan. And it's 5-year plan, but there's some really good things, including student parking, which is a big thing. And then finally, I feel like every meeting from now until June, we need to thank all of our retiring teachers and administrators. I mean, many of our teachers and administrators, this was the only district they ever worked in, and they gave a lifetime of experience to us, and we're really going to miss them. So I just want to say congratulations. Every week we do see who's retiring, and we really have a deep appreciation for all that they've done for our students and our community.
And our student representative update.
Mr. Olson kind of stole my quiz bowl update, so but I do have an update about prom, and it was a really great night. Over 400 students attended, and I got word from some of the chaperones that all of the vendors at prom said that they appreciated our very enthusiastic and respectful students. And I also want to say thank you to all the teachers who chaperoned, because they took time out of their night to do that for us. And especially thanks to Mr. Hall and Miss Dumais, the class advisors who planned prom, because they also took a lot of time to do that for us. So that's my update.
And having been a chaperone myself, I can tell you it is a great joy and exhausting. But I am so glad to hear that it went well. All right, we will move on to old business. Do we have any old business tonight?
Yeah, I was going to bring up, I know last meeting we had voted on and approved the discipline policy, and as we approach our goals meeting, I do think it is worth, during our goals meeting, to take a look at it a little deeper and perhaps have a discussion about specifically that one area about parents' appeal, just because I think after sitting with it for a couple of weeks, I think it's worth looking at that. And I know there's some legislative elements associated with that may, we may or may not be able to do what we want to do. But I just want to make sure that it's on the record that we have that conversation, because when it comes to parents not having the ability to appeal something, that's a scary area. And I know I've talked to some folks in the community about that, and there's just a little bit of concern there. So nothing to do tonight, but goals meeting.
I agree. I actually, again, having conversations with people in the community after that meeting, and I went to a couple of trainings for new school board members and sort of learned what questions I should be asking and what things I should be thinking about, and now I have a much better understanding of that. And I think whatever we decide with respect to that line, I think we missed an opportunity to have a real discussion about it, and I'd like to see us have a discussion.
I do think one of the things that we received was the legal background behind why that policy reads the way it does. And I think there's two things we need to clearly communicate. One, parents have a voice throughout the whole process. So parents are involved in every step of the way through that process. As far as the legislative component, yes, we're restricted by that, but I think we should see what we can do within that. The flip side of that is this is a legislative issue that needs to be addressed with our legislators as well. And I think all of us in the community can appeal to our legislative body for that as well. All right, moving on to new business, summer school highlights.
Thank you very much. I know this time of year you always appreciate being able to get a foresight of what's happening in the summer for summer school activities. Tonight, Heather Barker, Director of Student Services, and Fern Seiden, Director of Student Wellness, are here to talk a little bit about what we have designed so far for summer school activities. In advance of this presentation, I do want to just thank some of the staff members who have been involved in this planning, very much have influenced what it is we're going to do. That's Debbie Fournier, Nicole Diggins, Laura Piccolo, Ron DeLude, Nancy Romero, Christine Reinhart, Scott Riddell, and Karen Baldessaro. They have put in a lot of time to do this planning, as well as the language arts coordinators, K through 12. I want to thank Tom Tuso and Matt Chevanel, because we've had to work with facilities to determine where we're going to have all of these classrooms, and thank all of the administrators for accommodating the summer schools, because it truly means that teachers aren't getting into their classrooms as early as they would like, and their classrooms aren't being cleaned as early as they'd like. So it takes a lot of flexibility. And I also want to thank all of the staff who have stepped up to provide the supports for students this year. So I'm going to turn it over to Heather and Fern.
Sure. Thank you so much for having us again this evening. Last year we visited and shared our programming for last summer, so this should look somewhat familiar. So we have our summer learning program for grades K through 4, and that will be focused on reading and math and supporting it. So they changed it from summer reading to summer learning. I want to emphasize that. That will be facilitated again by Deb Fournier. It will be at RFS, so at Reed's Ferry School. It will run from July 5th to July 28th. What? Yes, July 28th, yep. The Tuesdays through Thursday, so it'll be a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday program from 8 to noon. The format of instruction will be in person at RFS. The focus will be on math and reading instruction and interventions, and it will include integrated SEL supports for students who attend the program. Okay, so this is on the general education side. Additionally, we're going to have the Title I Digital Reading Academy for grades 5 through 8. There was a lot of work behind the scenes to get some programming in place for this age group. As Kim said, we're really thrilled that people stepped up, both in the special education world in terms of special ed teachers, paraeducators, support staff, related service providers. Same thing on the general education side. It has been very challenging throughout the year, and in looking at the summer and really getting people to be working this summer. So we're excited to say this one is, as you can see, digital. This is actually building off of the work that Sue Lors did with that team last year and the previous year. We actually saw from data that the students who participated in this program actually had gains in their reading scores and their math scores, which was very exciting. So the team decided that because we couldn't get on-site staff, that instead of not having anything, we could do something like this. So similar to last year, there'll be customized reading skills that are being worked on using the online instructional programs, a similar format to last year where kids are working every day on these skill-based instructional programs online, and then that would also include those tutorials with the teacher and follow-up skill-based work, corrective instruction, and feedback. Okay. That program will be facilitated by Nicole Diggins and Laura Piccolo. As I said, that one is remote. It will run July 5th through August 11th of this summer. The frequency of instruction will be flexible scheduling between families and the providers throughout that school week, and it'll include a daily component using the online software that we found where it really worked for this targeted group of students. This program is for students in the Title I program from the previous, this past school year, including, it'll have an expanded list that they'll choose from students who are newly selected based on the spring assessment data. Students must be invited in rank order, medias first, based on multiple educational criteria, looking at that three-legged stool, kind of looking at assessments, and it is compliant with the Title I laws and rules. High school 8.5, similar to last year, this program will run again. This is for any student whose family wants them to participate. It also is really, really strongly encouraged for kids who are struggling or at risk or who may have challenges with moving more independently through a large school setting, students who have executive skill deficits, who are not in special education, and really allowing for that summer transitional time into the high school, setting them up for success. That's the whole idea behind the program. It will provide enrichment for those incoming ninth graders from all kinds of academic abilities and backgrounds. The program goal would be to prepare students for their time at the high school and set up for a successful freshman year. The students will go to classes at all levels, foundations to honors. So this is not specifically for one particular group of students. It's for any student who wants to participate in the transitional program. Additionally, this program, like in the past, will be run by Udl. It is an in-person program this summer. It will run from July 5th through August 11th. It will run Monday through Thursday, 4 days a week, and it's a 6-week program, okay? The students for this program, we're looking at, again, the same target audience I mentioned before, students who are at risk, who are struggling, students who really just need that transitional support and opportunity to be in the high school setting and experience the high school. And it's for any incoming ninth grader who wants to participate. In addition to that, special education layers in special ed supports, supplemental aids and services for students. So if there are students who are participating, they would receive special education supports during their participation in this program. And additionally, we will have SEL supports for these students as well attending the program. We're doing that across all programs. At the high school, again, they will continue with the credit recovery program. This instructional model, actually I want to go back because it's not actually on this slide, but I know there was a question about what students would receive, what is the academic classes. There's an English class, a math class, and a social studies class, in addition to an SEL intervention class for all students who participate in this program. And students have the opportunity to earn up to 1 credit by participating in the summer program that puts them ahead of the game for high school. I'm sorry, I forgot to say that. The credit recovery program, the instructional model, will serve same role as it would in a traditional summer school program, except they're using different formats. So it allows students to earn credit in courses they previously failed. They focus on the competencies within those courses that students need to make up versus that old model where kids had to take the whole course over again. There are 2 130-minute classes each day. Udl is the program facilitator of that program. It is also in person, and it runs the same time as the other high school programs from July 5th through August 11th. The frequency of instruction is Monday through Thursday, 4 days a week, and it is also a 6-week program at the high school. And those students will also have in that program access to special education supports, services. We layer in additional tutoring for some students or additional support beyond the program if students needed it in order to achieve those credits in recovery. Then we get into the ESY programs, which is really extended school year. And I want to thank Lori Rothaus, Chair Rothaus from last year, mentioning that why wait till summer to do some of the summer programming, why not intervene earlier? So this year during the school year, we encouraged principals and special ed teams to let student services know when they had students who really had significant gaps or they had real concerns about those students. And we provided tutoring, additional after-school hour tutoring for those students through their school and special ed IEP team. So that's separate from the summer programs. So in the summer, as we know, part of the IEP process is to take a look at students who would need extended school year. One category would be kids who experience substantial regression, right, during vacations, or if they weren't attending a summer program, their skills would regress. Additionally, there could be students who have evidence of emerging skills, those breakthrough skills, and we want to keep that momentum going for those students. Additionally, there are students who still have learning gaps that were created as a result of the pandemic over the past 2 years. So they had that disrupted learning, so we're still working with students in that group. These would always be determined by an IEP team, and it's determined annually. The focus of the services that would be provided to a student is part of the ESY would be to practice and maintain previously acquired and learned skills, or to address those gaps. So there's actually an IEP, part of an IEP that's written specifically for ESY, and it includes any related services, and transportation is provided to all students who attend any of the ESY programs. So all students, whether it's in their year-long IEP, for summer transportation is offered. Some students may require additional instruction, and they may require additional related services beyond the 5 or 6 week programs that we offer in special education. And like the past 2 years, we will again offer those beginning in June for some students and also in the latter part of August. So although the big main programs will run the month of July and the first week or first 2 weeks of August, there are students, because their IEP will say so, they will receive other services or additional services beyond or before the actual formal programs begin. What are those programs? We have the special education ESY program that begins in preschool and goes through grade 6. Those will be located at MES and JMUs. With you heard before, we worked really closely with Matt and Tom and Kim to look at where we could host the programs, and we were really looking to keep the programs closer together versus some kids at MMS and have the coordinators and folks trying to move between places. So we've put the big part of the ESY program is going to be housed at MES and JMU. So your littles will be at MES, preschool, first grade, second grade. The older kids will be able to be at JMUs, and that way the younger students would have access to the play areas that are appropriate for them, bathrooms that are appropriate, et cetera. That program will run as it has in previous years from July 5th through August 4th. That is a 5-week program. It's a Monday through Thursday program for 4-day students and a Tuesday through Thursday program for 3-day students. So it's either a 3 or 4-day program depending on IEP services. Additionally, there's extended summer instruction and related services that would be determined by the special ed IEP team. That's available in June and July and August, as I mentioned before. These programs meet 3 or 4 days a week. Kids are provided one-to-one and group instruction, and again, it's all completely driven by their IEP. Related services would be as prescribed, and the specialized transportation would be provided. There again will be the integrated SEL supports for students who attend the program. Who is the targeted population? It's any student, exceptional student who qualifies for these services. And as I said earlier, they're individualized and driven by ESY specified in the IEP. Within those programs, most students, there are, let's take like the 3-day program, the majority of students will attend either an 8:30 to 10:30 block or a 10:30 to 12:30 block. There will be other students who might come in earlier or stay later to get extended, so they might be there for 3 hours, and there will be some students who receive 4 hours. That could be a combination of specialized instruction and related services and or other services layered on top of that. Again, completely driven by the services in the IEP. Okay? Then we get to the 7 through 12 program. This one will be at the high school, and Christine Reiner actually did all of the preparation work with the high school team, and Scott Riddell will be overseeing that program as a special ed coordinator. It will be located at the high school, and it is an in-person program. That one will run July 5th through August 11th. It will be a 4-day-a-week program, and it's a 4 or 5 hour a day program depending on the student's IEPs there. It again is one-on-one and group instruction per the ESY IEP. The related services are ESY specific in the IEP, and specialized transportation would be provided. There will also be the same integrated SEL supports that are attending these programs. And Fern's going to talk a little bit about that in a minute because we've embedded them in both the general education and special ed services that we're offering. And just like the pre-K through 6 program or 6 program, students with disabilities that qualify and the services would be driven by their IEP. Then we have, very excited this year because we had COVID and it was challenging to get folks to do this summer pass programming for our students with emotional and behavioral needs. We have Nicole Delani, Aaron McLean, and Dan Varela have stepped up, and they've designed a brand new program for our grade 5 through 7 students who receive specially designed services and instruction in their IEPs currently in our PASS programs in the JMUs and the middle school. That program will run July 5th through August 4th, Tuesday, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. It will include an SEL component to it. It will also include instructional experiences, pro-social rec and leisure activities, and some pre-vocational and opportunity for real life application. It will also include, excitingly, that's where Dan Varela's can come in, 2 field trips for that real life application and pro-social rec and leisure activities, so the kids will have 2 full day opportunities during that time to get out in the community and experience some exciting things together, team building, working on trust, right, building relationships, all those good things. So that's very exciting that we have now added that program, and we're going to look at building out next year, pass for high school and pass for younger. So that's pretty exciting. Fern's slide is missing. Okay, so the
Well, I
slideshow.
can just speak to the slide that I was
sent
going.
it to you.
This is.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
You
So
have
you
it.
might have it in your packets, but I'll just explain. And I just wanted to say we're excited this summer to really take the perspective of total integration and making sure that we bring in a explicitly taught opportunity for teachers to use that's low lift and high impact. It's a really fun program that we're hoping to integrate. There's a lot of flexibility and great application for all different students of all ages. So we're excited about that. And we'll be making sure everybody has access to that and training. We're also going to continue. Last summer we piloted, and this was sort of thinking about COVID and its impact on students and their levels of anxiety and self-regulation and management of their emotions. Last year we ran a Mindful Moves program, introducing some strategies for self-regulation in that program, and we're going to expand it. We got feedback that said that just wasn't long enough, so we're expanding it somewhat, and it's going to be also bringing up a couple grades. It's just a 2-week program, and it's grades 2 through 6. And skill building, we're really looking at, we're going to provide skill building in those areas, and we're really looking at asking for students to come who may have had difficulty with attendance issues this year. So we want to continue addressing some of the skills that they really need to build in order to enter school feeling strong and more connected next year. So we're going to look at that, and we're also going to pilot. We're still in the beginning phases. We're getting through it, but we're trying to collaborate with the YMCA, Greater Nashua YMCA, for a program for grades 7 and 8. It would take on a little bit of a different stance. It's going to be more toward leadership and team building and connectedness, and again, trying to help some of the kids who may have had difficulty getting to school this year and having full attendance, to try to give them some opportunity that's, to expose them to school and just build relationships and feel comfortable coming to school in a kind of a place where maybe they're in the school but not having a high degree of academic stress involved, so we can kind of build those relationships and help them transition. So those are the programs that we're putting together. We're also working with school counselors to make sure that at the beginning of the school year they have the time they need to make sure they're available to help students with the transitions, as we really do want to focus our system of care on making sure that transitions is a really important time for students, and we want to make sure that they have what they need to transition smoothly and confidently.
So that was something we started during COVID. We will continue it again this summer with the Homeschool Liaison, so the homeschool social workers will continue to be able to work with their families. And actually, very exciting, families are reaching out and saying, are these folks going to be available this summer? So we have, those folks will be on board helping with families. We had a lot of success last year towards the end of the summer, having both the school counselor group, the behavioral support group at the schools, and the homeschool liaisons having additional time to actually be at the building and have kids come in, visit the school during those big transition groups, and having that chance to check in. And for our students who are really struggling with anxiety and insecurity around school and the transition, getting them into the school to visit, those check-in, the phone calls. So that will continue again this summer as well. We're working on building out that repertoire of services. So questions for us?
So as I open it up to questions, we want to take one program at a time instead of kind of jumping across the programs.
Do you want to go back to the first one?
Yes, let's go back to the beginning.
Okay.
So any questions on the summer learning programs grades K through 4?
I have one question. It's kind of actually about all of them because I'm new and this is the first time I've seen any information about the summer programs. I'm curious, how many kids do we serve in each of the programs?
So Kim, this is a big program.
This is a large program. There's about 120 students that will be at Reed's Ferry School. And priority will be on Title I identification and the upcoming assessments that will identify any students who are kind of on the cusp of Title I who would benefit.
Just making sure I understand it. The program runs Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, 4-hour blocks. It's 8 to 12, those 3 days. Okay, cool.
Yep.
Thanks.
I have to be honest and say this actually belongs on the general ed side. So I'm going to look to Kim to answer these.
Okay. Yeah.
Do they come for 4 hours?
I'm not sure of that answer. I can get that for you.
Well, there's a 8 to 10 and a 10 to
Okay,
12
there it is.
section for this.
So there's 2 blocks.
Okay.
So it meets either 8 to 10 or 10 to 12.
I see.
These programs, I will just point it out because I think it's important for families to know. And I can add some more detail based on what you guys asked me so that we can post these so families can see them. These programs do not include transportation. That's an important piece that families know that the summer programs on the general ed side do not include transportation. I think a lot of them are designed with those 2-hour blocks so more students can participate with the
Sure.
limited number of adults. Yep.
Sure. So if a student were to participate in this program, they would go to one or the other. It's not
Exactly.
gotcha.
I have to
Oh.
make a correction here. That was my mistake because I was thinking of the other program.
There's a lot
so
of
many programs
programs.
that we have, and we've had them in our buildings.
great.
This one is actually a 3-hour program, 8:30 to 11:30.
Okay.
And
Gotcha.
so there's no recess involved, and it's full
Okay.
of focused attention on deficit skills for reading and math.
Yeah.
My apologies.
Great. Thank you. No,
No,
appreciate it.
Okay.
You mentioned, you said this one was more general ed, so is this something that any student can take advantage of? Or is it something that they're selected for?
There's a selection process for this.
process.
And it's something that the teachers and the staff do and like notify the families that they're eligible
Yes,
and
they
that sort of
receive a
thing?
letter in the mail inviting them to participate in the program, and then if they don't, they move down the list and invite the other students. So they start from neediest and work up the list.
Got it. Thank you.
You're welcome. So students participating in these programs typically have learning gaps, right? So that's why they're being invited to the summer program.
All right, moving on to Title I Digital Reading Academy. You want to?
Sorry.
Okay.
So my only thing is for the elementary students, they would actually be going 12 days. So I don't know, when we look at this for next year, if we could condense it, have them go for a 4-hour program and then have, this group go for these 2 weeks and this group goes for I think it would be better for students. I think it would be better for parents because they would know this chunk of dedicated time is going to fill that gap. Because I just worry about that short and quick day. It feels like they barely get in there and we're sending them home. But if they had a longer day, I think it might be better. Just a suggestion.
It's definitely worth looking at. Yeah. Anything else on this one, summer learning?
Okay, remote.
Yep.
All right, Title I Digital Reading Academy, grades 5 through 8. So I do just want a clarifying question.
There. Yeah, I put it to that one. Oh, do you want to go to the first slide first?
Yes, let's do the
Okay.
first slide first. If I understood you correctly, this program is remote for lack of available staff.
Mm-hmm.
And so going remote makes it more flexible for the staff who are signing up for this program.
I'm going to defer to Kim on this.
There actually are only 2 staff members assigned
Yeah.
to this, and then 2 language arts coordinators, although all of the language arts coordinators will be making recommendations, and they'll be primarily focused on Lexia instruction.
And I think the reason they did that was because without having a lot of people to do it live, they had great results with Lexia last year. Sue Lohr's reported that out at one of the meetings, and it was it was actually remarkable because I was sure that choosing a remote program over live would be really tricky, but that's why they were going to use the same supports that they did in the same model. Yeah.
And you said you noticed, sorry, oh, my bad. You said you noticed through this format last year an improvement.
They have hard data on that, yes.
Yeah.
The district has data which is why they did it the second year. So this was the only option 2 years ago, and then last summer they did it again. So, right, yeah.
Okay, so this is going to sound like a broken record because I'm going to say the same thing that I said last year. So students in this program, they need more structure and support, and they need to be engaged. They have unique challenges. They think and learn differently. They have a difficulty time focusing. They have a tough time managing sensory input. And when we talk about remote learning, we need students who are independent and responsible for their own learning. And struggling learners do not fit into that category. A lot of our struggling learners have some family issues like financial worries or food insecurity, or there's an economic recession, the country's in social unrest. And I think it's just so critical that they have somebody that they're going to touch base with every single day during the summer for those kids. And personally, I think summer school should be for kids who need to have gaps filled, but also for bright kids who are innovative and want to do some extended learning opportunities, which we talked a little bit about that. So
Yeah.
I did catch that. So again, maybe we're not paying people enough, but if we're not paying people enough, then we need to pay people more. But there's school districts that offer summer school that are people are looking for those jobs, and so I just think we're not paying people enough, because we should be able to get even people from other districts that want to come and do summer school for us. And so that's what I said last year, and I'm going to say it again.
Anything else on Title I digital learning?
I'm just curious
Yeah.
again how many kids we serve in each of the programs.
This selection process hasn't been determined yet. It'll go with the Title I eligibility and the ranking. Every Title I teacher can have up to 20 to 25 kids. It has to be comparable to a classroom teacher. If there's a compelling reason why we have to hire another additional person, we would do that.
Sure. I'm for that. I think that we're coming off of COVID. We have huge gaps. We talk about, high school dropout rates. They don't drop out senior year. They drop out in 4th grade. They drop out in 7th grade. Those are the red flags. You read their cum files, they start to become disengaged. And by, high school, they unplugged. We got to get to those kids. And so whatever we can do, I'm for.
Any other questions on that program? All right.
Do we want to make a motion for that, or no?
No.
Okay.
So we'll move on to High School 8.5 program. Any questions on this program? Go ahead.
Okay, here I go. So for our high schools, what I would be looking for is data. I want to know how many students failed Algebra 1, how many students failed Algebra 2, how many students failed chemistry. And then I would like to see, we're matching our summer school to our students' needs based on this data. We don't have all that data right now, but we know by January, these kids are in trouble, and this is what it looks like. So I really feel course failure rates, and then making data decisions, making sure that the students who need course recoveries, they failed the course, versus competency recovery, which they're missing a gap in their learning, and they could come maybe for a week or 4 days and get that class. You have to do a writing sample. You didn't pass persuasive persuasive writing. So this is what you need to do. When you do it, you're competent. We're going to give you the credit. So those are things that I would look for. And then again, I said academic support and extended learning opportunities for all students, low performing and high performing. Comprehensive intervention systems that utilizes a variety of integrated mutual reinforcing strategies. We have to make sure that summer school programs are not stigmatized, and so in some ways I think we ask people to do too much. Like Heather is the director of special ed, she's doing summer school programs. Like she should be the director of special ed. We should have somebody who's doing summer school programs, because summer school programs should be for all students, not just special ed students or you know, there's all kinds of ways we can do that. And then, you know, our goal with all these interventions is by 10th grade, all of our students would be on grade level. That would be like our goal. That would be like amazing, but we have so much work to get there, but that's what we're gonna be talking about this summer too. So we're all paddling in the boat together, you know, so that's it.
Well, I'd love to respond to that, because honestly, I think the same idea that we talked about last summer, which was, is there a way to do some of the extended school year work during the year? We started finding that way. It primarily happened in the K-6 program. We need to work on that in the secondary level. Additionally, on the general education side, just what you're talking about, looking at attendance rates, looking at discipline with kids, looking at their failure rates or success, lack of success in classes, and intervening earlier so that kids actually are earning credits and see themselves as capable learners in school. I'm completely on board with this, yeah. Yep, and we actually have an index that's built into our Power School system so we can see who those kids are, right? Yeah.
I do have a question on the
Sure.
8.5 program. You mentioned that it was for any student and it covers everything from foundations to honors.
Yep.
How does a parent find out how their child could participate in that?
Sure, I actually have an expert in the house. Christine Reiner.
You would just send an email to Ron DeLude, because the registration forms have gone out already. So if you send it to ronald.delude@sau26.org, he would send you an application form.
So let me just
It's also
repeat
online.
that
Yep.
answer.
Yep.
If you send an email to Ron DeLude, the registration forms have gone out, but if you did not see them or they disappeared in the mail, which, you know, we know those things happen, email him and he will get you those forms and packets for this program. And it's also online.
Yep. Well, we don't know. We're asking, could we have it online
Oh,
from
can
the
we-
high school?
The program itself?
No, the application.
Yes, we have it online.
We have it online.
Yes, it is online.
Thank you, expert Christine Reiner, who helped me with this. Okay. Anything more for 8.5?
I just love this program, and I taught middle school for a super long time, and now I'm taught high school for a super long time, and that transition is so all over the place for every kid, and anything to make that smoother is a good thing. So I think this is great.
And it is an evidence-based intervention. We know that from data and in other places in the country. I'm sure that's why they brought it to Merrimack. It has proven results for kids.
How big does this one get? How many people take advantage of it?
I'm not sure. Hold on.
It's usually around 60 to 65.
That would be great to get, yeah.
The answer was 60 to 65 kids.
Yeah. Thanks, Christine Reiner. Okay. Last year, we actually brought some of these folks with us. We were trying to be quick but this is an important subject. It really is.
All right, any more questions on that?
Oh.
I just have a comment about 8.5. I didn't personally participate, but I know a lot of people in my grade level who did, and it is very beneficial because now as juniors, they are not as worried about getting this credit and getting that credit because they got stuff out of the way before they got to the high school. So it's very beneficial for kids.
There's a good testimonial right there. Okay, anything else for 8.5? Okay, moving on to credit recovery.
I know Lori had spoken to some of this, but I just want to clarify, there is competency recovery as part of this
Yes,
program.
so some students, right, it could be up to, I think that's why they have the 2 blocks. So, and again, Christine could probably talk more about this. I hate doing this to you, Christine.
Some students have to literally finish a competency. They might just
Yeah.
be coming in for a week or for a couple of days, all the way up to the whole time, depending on what they have left to finish. So it's individualized for the child.
Additionally, I've worked with Christine at the high school to layer in support from our transition coordinator that comes out of student services and is placed at the high school to support kids with, it can be anything from high set to supporting them through a course, layering in special education to help those students, get paraeducators to be working with them so that they are successful and they are seeing themselves as learners and able to do this work. So we work very closely there and do a lot of thinking outside the box for specific kids, trying to really individualize it. So while this program, it's all about getting credits and earning the credits that you need to graduate. So we'll do it however we need to do it. Any other questions?
Same question.
I know. I'm not sure. I think, Christine, do you know?
How many kids take advantage? I'm actually curious too. This is for not just special needs kids.
So
This is
for
anybody who failed the class,
any
right?
student, yes.
Perfect.
Credit recovery is highly individualized depending on the number of students who fail classes
Right.
during the semester. So we don't really know until the end
Yeah.
of the school year. We're anticipating a fairly high number.
Yes.
Especially in math.
Yep.
I'm going to repeat the answer so that it's the
Yes,
people
thank you.
can hear. It's highly individualized. They won't really know until the end of the year because it's based on how many kids fail particular classes, and they're expecting it's going to be pretty heavily utilized this year, especially in math.
Yes. And I would also say it's voluntary, so it's, again, those testimonials become really important, and kids talking to other kids about the success of getting that really individualized help. Anything else? I think this is the end of the general ed programs. So we're going to shift gears into ESY. So the K-6, the pre-K-6 program at MES and JMUs.
What percentage of kids who currently have IEPs do you think will be identified in their IEP teams for this service?
So typically the whole program, and most of it is in the K through 6 group, and then some, we have had a really hard time, actually when I came in 2019, they didn't have real programming at the middle school, kids wouldn't come. We've beefed that up, got some of that general ed stuff going on too, and targeted that YMCA group because attendance really impacts achievement for special ed or general ed. So most of the program is pre-K-6, and you're looking at 300 to 400 kids a year attending these programs. And some of them don't ever actually walk into those buildings because we're tailoring a specific service. For example, a student might be getting Orton Gillingham. We would continue that through the summer for those students for whatever the IEP says. But there are between 300 and 400 children who attend these programs.
So hopefully, maybe at the end of the summer, we could have a data report
Sure.
on the number of schools who
Yes.
attended, the number of students, what classes they took,
Both gen
if
ed
there's
and
any
special.
testing that went on, the students that actually showed a differentiation between before and after, anything that would give us support for how these programs are going.
Yeah, I'd love to add one other thing in the whole big picture here. It's not on here, but this is also exciting work. We're doing some pioneering with, we began parent conversations in 2020, July of 2020. And we had several parents join those conversations who were parents of out-of-district students, feeling very isolated and not really part of the community. And this year, we're going to be joining forces with different programs in the district for some of those students to participate here in their own community and with some other students in the community. Christine and I are working on that at the high school, inviting a couple different kids with a student who might be from out of district, and then maybe they have an interest in coding, going to a coding camp together. or things like that. Christine's team and our office worked together to get a horse program for kids in our Get Set program, and then some out-of-district students. So the idea here is figuring out different pathways to create what I would consider unique programming in Merrimack. So again, thinking outside that box, how can you reach kids? How can you create programming for them? So that, just beginning to do some of that work, those families of those children who are doing some type of program that might be combined are really excited to be part of the Merrimack community. So it's really exciting work. And that doesn't have a slide. Yeah. I was trying to be brief.
We always have lots of questions on the summer program.
That's okay.
All right, the special education ESY programs, grades 7 through 12.
How about I just answer this question for you? It's about 20 to 25 students who participate, mostly in our Get Set program or Bridges program. And again, the other students with educational disabilities aren't coming in for a specific special ed program, but they might be in the 8.5 or credit recovery class and receiving special education in addition to that. So that's how we're doing the special ed in 7 through 12.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I just thought I'd head that one off. Next year I'll do better.
Any questions on that one? All right. So Summer Pass, this was exciting to hear about. This is an exciting program. Any questions on the Summer Pass program?
No questions. I'm very excited to see how it plays out, though. It's such a great idea.
So I will add, because I haven't seen you guys in a few months, as a quick update, we really looked at, and I've come to the board before talking about how important it is to align our programs across the district. And we really, really needed to focus on pass and the alignment through the lower elementary through the high school. And we have a team from every building participating in an EBD 6 session. It's the equivalent of a master's level course, working with Ceresc. We through student services, we have those teams going to include someone from administration, typically the assistant principal, who might be doing discipline, because we all know these students tend to have higher incidence of behavioral issues that might warrant interactions with administrators. We have the PASS folks going and the coordinator from those buildings. So very excited to do that alignment work. Dan Varela this year, I'm going to do a big shout out for him right now, in our JMU's PASS program, has begun to take kids back out over to the ropes courses at the Brown Center at UNH. And we'd love to get some of that programming into the lower elementary and the middle and high school. There's a lot of work to be done here, but it's exciting work, and it's really important for the student group, because I agree with Chair Rothaus. There are children as early as 3rd and 4th grade who no longer see themselves as learners in school and are disengaged or disenfranchised. So we need to target them early. I'm totally with you on this. So that's the end of the special ed programs. And then, of course, SEL is infused in everything. It's just part of all the work we do with all kids. Wouldn't you agree? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Anything else for us, since we took up so much time?
So just as you did last year, I know you mentioned a couple little updates you're going to put on the slides, but then yes,
Sure.
let's get that up on the
Yep.
website so
Yep.
that we got that information out for parents.
And we'll mark our
See it.
calendars to come back in late August to tell you how successful those programs were and get our thinking caps on for next year. All right? Thank you for
Thank you
having
very
us.
much.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to move on to the Universal Design Learning presentation. Give Assistant Superintendent Yarlett a time to switch gears here.
Thank you very much. I want to reintroduce to you, for those of you who may not know, sitting to my side here is Bill Wilmot, and he works with CAST. And he has been running the team of educators throughout the district on different stages of implementation of UDL practices, UDL standing for Universal Design for Learning. And tonight we have a large cohort of educators who are going to come and present about what's happening at each of the buildings. We presented early in the fall, and we just wanted to bring back and close the loop so that you could see some of the great work that's been being done. So we're going to work off of one slideshow, so we're not going to have people coming up with different laptops. Good suggestion. And I'm going to start with Bill doing an introduction. You can see the names of the persons who are going to be presenting tonight. So, Bill. I'm not getting into presentation mode.
So from the beginning, Kim, go all the way over to your left. Yep.
Starting from the beginning.
All right, excited to be here again. Bill Wilmot, I'm a UDL implementation specialist at CAST, and I've been working in Merrimack for 4 years now, working with Merrimack for 4 years. So my job is to do the 3-minute intro of UDL for you all. Some of you are educators, some of you might not be educators, and the people behind me will tell you, they've been working on learning about UDL for four years, so this will be a quick intro. So Universal Design for Learning is a framework that's designed to improve and optimize teaching and learning for everyone by setting clear goals, rigorous goals, by anticipating barriers, and by proactively designing to minimize those barriers. So that's a definition. It's only as useful as most definitions are, right? The learning about UDL and putting it into practice is really a process of unspooling, unwinding, and understanding all of that definition. So here's the one slide summary of UDL. It's a framework to design multiple ways to get to the same learning goal. We want all kids, if you click it once, we want all kids to get to specific learning goals that we've outlined, and Merrimack has done an incredible job of outlining what those learning goals are. We know when we walk into a classroom of 25 students, we have 25 different learners. So we have to be thinking about what are all of the different ways that we can support learners to get to that learning goal. And in that process, they're going to confront barriers. And so the UDL framework helps educators identify barriers, anticipate them, and design multiple pathways to get around those barriers, to minimize those barriers. So we don't have all students taking the same pathway. We have students taking multiple different pathways to get to the same goal. And that can come in terms of students engaging in learning in multiple different ways, right? We saw an incredible Chop Shop team who is engaging in a specific type of learning to get to a learning goal. But that might not work for everyone, right? In fact, we can probably pretty well guess that won't work for everyone. It can come in terms of multiple ways of representing content, of perceiving content, taking it in, and understanding it. And it can come in multiple ways of showing what you know. So multiple ways to share back with your teachers what you've learned. So the core tool of UDL are the Udl Guidelines, which I just quickly outlined there for you. Multiple ways of engaging, multiple ways to represent information, multiple ways to take action on what you've learned. What these do is provide a common instructional design language for educators. To me, the most powerful thing about adopting UDL across a whole district is that you have suddenly everyone speaking a common language about teaching and learning. So you can have a music teacher talking to a second grade teacher, talking to a high school history teacher, and they're all able to have a coherent conversation about teaching and learning, about the design of instruction, and how to make sure that that instruction reaches everyone and supports students to take ownership of their learning. So that great, beautiful variability of learners, this helps summarize that variability. Each one of those bullet points up there, I promise you I won't read them to you, is backed by research. So if you look at the interactive version of this on our website, you can see the research behind each one of those. So this is in some ways a summary of educational research that has an impact on classrooms. This is a tool for analyzing, understanding barriers that might get in the way for students to reach their learning goals, and it offers design advice to the educators. The end goal you'll see down there at the bottom is to support the development of expert learning. It's really small on the left there, but bigger on the right. So the idea is we as educators use these guidelines. We design using the guidelines on the left to get the result of expert learners. Students who are more expert at learning, they get better at learning, right? They're more purposeful and motivated, resourceful and knowledgeable, strategic and goal-directed. So that tool on the right there that you see, Becoming Expert Learners, is a tool that we use when we go into classrooms in Merrimack, looking at the instruction that's going on, and we ask the question, how are classrooms and instruction designed to support expert learning for all students? So just a quick history of what we've done in Merrimack over the last 4 years. So 2018-19, we started with 2 teams, one at MMS and one at JMUS. They each launched teams of general educators, special educators, language arts coordinators, and administrators, and went incredibly well. So well that all the other schools wanted to join in. So we launched teams in all of the schools and a district-wide team in 1920. And we kept that going through the pandemic. There were ups and downs. There were lots of other distractions and lots of other things going on. I think the people who had been engaged the longest and knew UDL the best found it to be an incredibly useful framework to think about pandemic learning, right? There were suddenly all of these barriers that were very obvious to everyone, and having a framework that focused on minimizing barriers was helpful. For others, they were just getting started, and so it was overwhelming to think about all of those things at the same time. So all of these teams are a part of the New Hampshire UDL Innovation Network, which includes now about 65 schools from across the state. The work is funded by the New Hampshire Department of Education. What that involves is they have monthly team meetings. I meet with the facilitator of each team once a month to support their work. We have statewide conferences in the fall and the spring where they come and meet educators from other schools. We have online learning resources that they are using all the time for their team meetings. And then we also have school visits that we conduct where I will come and will facilitate visiting classrooms and using an instructional rounds protocol to study practice in the schools. The theme of this year that I did not expect to go into this year, I think everybody's expectations about this year were thwarted within a couple of weeks. But the theme for across the Merrimack teams for me this year has been ownership, right? I in previous facilitator meetings, I would come with an agenda and I would say, I think you should think about this, 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 and this. And this year it has been, the agenda is coming to me. Facilitators and teams are really taking ownership of the work, and they're coming to ask me for support, advice, but are driving the work on their own. And that's very exciting to see. It really feels like it's beginning to take off. I think in a lot of schools, next steps are really looking at how do we scale this school-wide. In some schools, it has been primarily the UDL team, which is anywhere from 7, 8 to 15, 16 educators. Some schools have started scaling school-wide, but I think that's a theme for next year. And then really, how do we embed this thinking throughout all of our processes so it doesn't become just UDL team thinking about UDL over here, but we're thinking about that in our summer programming, in the design of our summer programming, in all of the things that we do. And then another piece of that is really thinking with all of the curriculum work being done, how are we scaling UDL practice by embedding a lot of this thinking in the curriculum work that's going on. So that's my quick overview, but it's much more exciting, I can assure you, to hear from each of the schools.
Yeah, so as I mentioned earlier, each of the schools chose a focus goal for the year, and I just want to remind you our August Academy this year, there were 3 themes, UDL, SEL, and the Canvas work, and so everyone got a really, really good dose of where we're heading with our understanding design model. And so now I want you to hear from the schools, and I think what we'll do, Bill, is I think you and I will be the wings, and we'll invite up Master Cole Elementary School.
Hi, I'm Marissa Ricard, and I'm a first grade teacher at Master Cola. This is my second year as part of the UDL committee. And this year, throughout the fall and winter, we worked on our monthly meetings to come up as a school-wide focus for us for this year and moving into next year. And we really want to focus in on how our classroom's designed to support all students to use the tools and strategies available to transfer their learning. And that can obviously look different depending on the age, but as a first grade teacher, I kind of see that as academically and socially, emotionally. For example, if we're working on a writer's workshop lesson, that the students can learn to use the different tools available that we've practiced and modeled, whether it's going to the word wall for spelling or using their writer's checklist to go over and check their own work. And even socially, emotionally, we have done a lot with like regulation stations in our classroom and being able to develop self-regulation skills and things that work. So if they're facing a challenging moment, using tools that work for them to help them, whether it's in the classroom or taking a walk or using one of our pass badges to get them in a place for their best learning. So these were actually some pictures from my class from a writing lesson that we did, and I really wanted to focus on goal-directed learners, so I actually had the kids pick their own writing goal that they wanted to work on. We were kind of focusing in on narrative writing and informational text, so they were writing teaching books about a topic. So I did a few different goals. So it says the first one is I can think of my own writing ideas, because I had some kids who, as soon as I'd say writer's workshop, they would just kind of shut down, because even coming up with an idea on their own was really frustrating for them, and they needed a lot of teacher support. The next one was I can write details about my topic. I had a goal about I can make a neat and detailed drawing. I can use the word wall. And then I can use a writing checklist to check my own work. So I told the students that I was letting them pick their goal, and I was interested to see, because I had in mind for each student a certain goal that I thought would be a good challenging goal for them. And I have to say they were pretty honest, and I think reflecting on what was really hard for them. I had a few students who I know drawing's very frustrating for, and they were the two that picked to focus on working on a neat and detailed drawing. So it was really nice, because for those next 2 weeks, my para and I kind of stepped back instead of like, okay, for writer's workshop, like everyone has to finish their story, by the end of the week, and it was more zoned in on, okay, when we conference with this student, they're really working on this, small skill, and I think it made it more manageable for the students as well. And then this is just another picture of the goals. But I think for me, the biggest takeaways so far with UDL is goal-directed learning and identifying barriers in the classroom. For me, it's really helped as a teacher being goal-directed. And sometimes I think we have so much that we have to teach in a day, and it's like, okay, I got to get this done. And it's made me really pause sometimes and take a step back and think like, okay, so what is the goal? Like, what do I want all my students to walk away with? And there's a bunch of different ways to get there. Like in the fall, I had a few students that had a lot of behaviors in class, and it was often around certain academics. And I started to realize that, they can get to the goal, whether it was a phonics skill or a math skill, but they can take a different route to get there, whether it's working in the classroom or working outside of the classroom, or maybe they're not writing, but they're using manipulatives with a teacher to show their learning. So I feel like it made me be more flexible as a teacher. And I do have to say, I have noticed a difference in the behaviors during certain academic parts of the day. So those are my big takeaways so far being a part of the UDL committee, and I look forward to continuing on next year with them.
Thank you so much, Marissa. And we're so proud to have Marissa here today, Ms. Ricard, to share the learning she's done with our UDL team. We have many teacher leaders at MES who are going to step it up next year and really infuse UDL school-wide. So we're looking to our leaders like Ms. Ricard to help bring more teachers on board and help develop our expert learners at MES. So thank you for having us.
Now Thornton's Ferry, and in true UDL fashion, you should have had visuals with you today. And I'm not sure why they didn't get into your packet, but I will definitely send you this PowerPoint.
Good evening. My name is Julie DeLuca, and I'm the principal of Thornton's Ferry School.
And I'm Barb DeFrancisco. I'm teaching a third, fourth grade, multi-grade classroom for the second year.
And so we just want to thank you for having us this evening. And so tonight we have two facets of our very brief presentation. The first piece is I will speak to just overall what our goal has been. We're in the second year of the UDL cycle, and so I'll speak to some of that. And then the real exciting work is the presentation that Barb has, where we'll take a peek into a multi-age classroom and how UDL has been incorporating that. Barb is an experienced teacher, and even prior to UDL, she has been incorporating many of these practices within her classroom. So I'm just thrilled that Barb could be here tonight. I'm representing Jenny Calnan, who is our language arts coordinator. She's the facilitator of this committee, and she had an evening appointment. So I'm here on her behalf, as well as on the behalf of 13 UDL members who have worked tirelessly this year. And we expanded our committee this year, and we intentionally did that because our focus was to increase the capacity of our committee with an understanding of UDL, and also to take a deeper dive into the UDL guidelines. So our committee decided this year to really take a deep dive into the engagement, which is the green part of the guidelines, and something that we've been talking a lot about tonight is that we see a direct correlation between student engagement and students' abilities to self-regulate. As you know, with the pandemic, it's been harder for kids to self-regulate, and so we really wanted to take a deeper dive into how we can increase engagement in student academics and learning, and how does that impact students' ability to regulate and attend in the classroom. When we did our instructional rounds with the focus again on engagement, we had some interesting, what I would say, aha moments. And there's been many listed here, but the specific one that we noted in collecting our data was that there is a lot of teacher support of student self-regulation versus students monitoring their own self-regulation. And so I always say, if we're working harder than the students, then we need to look at our practice and say, how can we shift that? And that was a major piece of our instructional rounds, where we saw a lot of it was teacher versus student. And that'll be something we'll be working on next year.
Okay, so now you get to see some pictures from my classroom. I kind of did a brain dump of everything that we do UDL, and then I'm talking with Mrs. DeLuca, focused on the engagement piece. So the first column, the first part of engagement is recruiting interest. So the top picture shows in any of our units of study, students have many different ways they access the information they need to find. They might be on epic reading or having a book read to them. They might be watching videos. They might be reading a regular book. Then they have choices on how they're going to show what they learn. They pick their topics. We teach them how to write questions, and then they go pick their topics, and off they go, and they have a great time. They also have one of the coolest assignments, coolest thing that came out of UDL or classroom, carries across all of them. But last year, a student did a report, a current event report on butterflies and how the habitats are leaving. They're being destroyed. So the class is like, well, what are we going to do to help? And I said, I don't know. What are you going to do? So they were certainly interested at that point, and they decided to go out and figure out what butterflies need. So they had to do some research. I helped guide them to the fact that they needed some money to do this. So they had to negotiate with their parents to get some chores, and everybody kicked in $5, and then we went and they had to figure out what plants to do. So they were so engaged in this the whole time. It was a whole 6-week thing. And then we actually went out, and the bottom shows them actually planting and cleaning and taking care of the garden. And then every single day, they had to go out and water that place because it's in the bright sun. So that hit, recruiting the interest and sustaining their effort and persistence, because even today they will walk by and say, hey, that's our garden, we better go get that weed, or things like that. So that totally fits the engagement piece with UDL. The middle column talks about self-regulation, and as Mrs. DeLuca said, I try really hard to get the kids to figure out what they need as learners. Every lesson started with get where you need to be and get what you need so that you can be successful in today's lesson, and that just shows some different seating we have in the classroom, some different places they learn. Wobble stools are popular, yoga balls, sometimes they stand at a table, so whatever they need. And then the last piece, sustaining effort. We work really hard with the persistence piece with the classroom community. We start every day with a morning meeting. I teach them all the parts of a morning meeting. They come up with their own ideas, and now they lead the morning meetings. I lead one a week. I lead on Monday because we're under a time constraint, so I need to keep it moving. But they lead all the other morning meetings, so they really persist in trying to figure out one-up each other and who's going to get the best meeting going, but it keeps them engaged. And by having that community piece, when we have things maybe not go so well in a classroom, either on a playground or something, they have the skills now to sit and solve it themselves. So that's just the engagement piece of it, but I've done some reflecting too, and I told Mrs. DeLuca if I had to pick one thing that I learned that I try to ask myself when I'm planning is, what's the purpose of this lesson? And once I figure out that purpose, then I work with the individual students to figure out what they need to be successful. I had a student once who was basically a non-reader in 3rd and 4th grade, but boy, could she summarize a story. It might not have been written, it might have been dictated in, it might have been through a song or something else, but she certainly could participate. So it's just teaching ourselves to come all the way around and figure out what every student needs. I was talking with a colleague, and just this week, somebody who's not on the UDL team, but working closely with and trying to get them to try some of these things, and she said something that is absolutely true, and that is if we don't increase engagement so our students want to be in school and want to be learning, we're not doing our jobs, and they're much harder to do our jobs. So when students are engaged in their learning, positive behaviors are shown and great learning happens. So UDL has been really positive. So.
Thank you, Mrs. DeFrancisco. Can you hear me?
No.
Okay. Finally, we are one of the schools that we've concentrated primarily this year on our UDL committee, growing the capacity of our committee since we added new members. As Bill said, we're at a scaling point right now, and our goal is to scale whole school next year. One thing that I've learned being at Thornton's Ferry for 17 years and being an administrator for 9 years, that a lot of change has to happen and be accepted organically. And so knowing that, and with change that we've implemented over the years, we're thinking ahead and say, okay, how do we scale up? And how do we ensure that people feel an ownership of this process? It's not something that's done to me, but I feel and know that this is something that I believe in. So I want to thank Bill Wilmot, who provided this model when we went to the Capone at a network meeting. And our June staff meeting is going to give educators, all educators, an opportunity to participate in a design lab and how to design their learning spaces with a focus on UDL and SEL integrated. And teachers will have different models they can use using Legos. There will be an opportunity to use computers to design. We have purchased some books that Bill had recommended, and so it's going to be a design lab. And as teachers are beginning to think about next year, before they leave for the summer, we want to plant a seed and give them the resources in designing your classroom and your learning space for next year. How can you do it in a way that is UDL driven? And Bill is also supporting us, and he's going to provide an overview to the staff about UDL, and here's a tangible way that this could impact our building and our students, most importantly. So I'm really excited about our June staff meeting. I'm very appreciative of Barb and all the members of the UDL committee. We have an amazing committee, and I'm excited for this work for years to come. Thank you.
Thank you. You're going to hear from Reed's Ferry School next.
I'm Laura Livy, the assistant principal at Reed's Ferry.
And this is on?
Yeah.
It's on. Okay, no, it wasn't. And I'm Jeanette Cody, the language arts coordinator at Reed's Ferry and also the UDL facilitator for our UDL team. So just before I go to the next slide, just a little bit of background. Reed's Ferry is in our third year of UDL implementation, and this year we were a learning hub. We decided to become a learning hub, which is the next stage of UDL implementation. And we had completed several rounds of the Instructional Rounds protocol, which very quickly is a protocol for the UDL teams to go in and observe each other's classrooms and look and observe in non-evaluative terms and look for elements of the UDL guidelines that Bill showed and TFS showed. So our presentation focuses on our school-wide instructional rounds because we're the first school to dive in and be brave and do a school-wide implementation. So I just want to give a shout out to our Reed's Ferry educators because they had to be vulnerable to do this, and they were such amazing team players to be able to support our students and really look and see what's happening in classrooms. So our goal that came out of all of our previous instructional rounds was to look at how our students were sustaining effort and persistence, and how classrooms were designed to foster student independence and also student executive functioning, because executive functioning skills overall are lacking. So what you see on this slide right here is what was given to teachers in March of 22. So this was the protocol that they had to follow. So we decided to do the instructional rounds in grade level teams, so they're grade level PLTs. So within their grade level, so they're familiar with each other and comfortable with their colleagues. They visited at least 2 of their grade level teammates, just for 5 or 10 minutes, non-threatening. They were just going in and looking for elements of the UDL guidelines and looking specifically for how the classrooms were designed to foster student independence. So they wrote notes on the Instructional Rounds notes page, and then they transfer those to sticky notes, and then because we use the sticky notes for our next process. So let's go. So this is a picture of our 3rd grade instructional round. So after they did their observations and they did their sticky notes, then we all debriefed as a grade level team. And so for each UDL guideline, for representation, for action and expression, and for engagement, we all had a discussion together, and we had to categorize which observations went under representation, which were part of action and expression, and which were under engagement. So you can see here that this is the 3rd grade team's work. This is our kindergarten team's work. The writing that you see there is the summary statements that that the teams made for each section under the guidelines. You can notice here in kindergarten that engagement has quite a few sticky notes. We did notice generally over school-wide that engagement had the most observations.
And I'll just jump in here and say that this really speaks to across the whole school, we have high levels of engagement where teachers are doing everything that they can to try to engage students. What we want to see more is more of the independence, the self-motivated, sort of self-directed learning.
So the next piece of our process was after we did this with each grade level. We did every grade level had 3 charts, and so we debriefed at a staff meeting in April, and we used our gymnasium and spread our charts out across the entire gym. And we broke our staff up into vertical teams so that they were mixed up. So there were 6 groups, and there was a grade level representative for each grade in the group, so that they could have some deeper discussions about what they were noticing school-wide. And so this is just an example of what was given to the staff during that meeting. So what you see there, engagement, this is actually the guidelines for an expert learner. So we wanted to see if staff could recognize any of the expert learner characteristics in their observations. And so I had actually updated the slide, but it's not on. It's not updated. But what I had put in there is what the staff overall learned was that we at RFS do an excellent job designing our classrooms and instruction for engagement and motivation. Our kids have routines, and they're engaged and they're motivated in what they're learning. And then our takeaway is that we would love to start thinking about how to get students to be more goal-directed in their learning, and how to take ownership of their work.
And it was a very enjoyable process. I think the staff is more, it's not just the core team, UDL team, that's really understanding it. I think overall it's spread, and it's. I think everyone has a better understanding of it.
Right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The upper elementary is going to present next. Thank you so much.
How did you study?
Okay. Circle back. Good evening. I'm Nikki Rowe, and I'm the assistant principal at the Upper Elementary School.
Hi, good evening. My name is Laura Piccolo. I'm the language arts coordinator at JMUS, and I am also the UDL facilitator. Takes me a minute, it's late. And Bethany Taylor is also a UDL facilitator. She wanted to be here this evening and had a commitment, so I just wanted to recognize her for that. So a part of our goal this year has been addressed, and we also participated in instructional rounds, and we wanted to focus on something different just to show you a different piece of what we were doing. So what we'd like to show you is also our team. Oh, our other slide isn't there. Yeah, our other slide isn't there. The other one that we need. I can start with this one. Yeah, it's the slide that has 3 pieces to it. So I can just start with this one. It's just missing a few pictures too. So let's start with this. This was a huge piece. Bill was instrumental in working with me on this. This Child Talk pre-conference sheet is a way that we have been able to incorporate the UDL process through our entire school without having to have it be through a committee. So the Child Talk team is, in layman's terms, a think tank for our school. So when a classroom teacher or even a case manager, even a Title I tutor, is having difficulty with a student, and they're having a difficult time reaching them as a learner, and they might reach out to their PLT, and they're still having a difficult time reaching them, and they would like some more help. They can come to this form, and they can fill out the form to start. The first thing they do is run through all of these pieces. When Bill and I designed the form, it's very purposefully designed. It's color-coded the same way that you've seen the UDL principals form. So green is engagement, purple representation, blue action and expression. And what it does is intrinsically asks the educator to go through all of the principles that UDL has and asks them to shift their thinking and possibly their practice without having to be on the committee to learn all of it immediately. So in our process at JMU's, the checklist is right at the top. And the first piece is the file review, in which case we ask the educator to go to the cumulative file and really look through and gather information and list those observations in the red section. Then go through and complete the entire sheet. And they meet with the language arts coordinator. And the reason for that is because I'm the person that knows UDL in and out. So not only can I help them think through what they may or may not have missed in the file and process some of the things they have seen and ask some probing questions, I typically will fill out this form for the first time with an educator as they do it. So I'm teaching them the UDL principles without them necessarily knowing that they're learning UDL. Go ahead, please.
Laura's like the coach extraordinaire. And this has served us very well because teachers would come to this meeting and we would have the principal, the assistant principal, we would have other support, any kind of like student support that child was receiving, and they wouldn't have dived deep enough. And so Laura, being coach, sits with them to complete this form so that when they come to the broad team, many things have already been tried, have been put in place, and they completely understand the process and they have some data to show us. And then that think tank becomes a little bit larger. And it's all based on data that's been collected, which is incredibly helpful. It can seem very daunting. I'm sure when you're looking at the form, you might say like, wow, I can't even see it because there's so many things on it. And so for a teacher to know that a coach is there and ready, willing, and educated to help guide them in this process, and especially to help guide their thinking. And Laura has done a wonderful job with that. Using different tools to help them to understand what they need to think about next and what data might be the next data to collect. So we're really grateful for you and Bill and for the coaching that you've done for teachers.
Thank you. It has been incredibly helpful because some of the teachers that are not on the committee have asked questions about different sections. Well, what exactly does that mean? Oh, that's what you mean? I never thought about offering something like that. And then they try it and it works for that student, or it's been incredibly impacting. And we've noticed that especially during this time where, especially at the beginning of the year, it's difficult to pull the key players that need to be pulled, meaning for the Child Talk team, administrators, coaches, the SST team.
Yep. Student support team.
Student support team, thank you. Together for meetings after meetings after meetings when we don't have all of the information that we need. I'm one person that can walk somebody through and ask these probing questions and say, let's try something like this, or how might we try something like this using cognitive coaching training that has been incredibly helpful, just a sidebar. And using some of those other strategies, be more prepared so when we do pull a team together, it is incredibly powerful and we do have more data-informed decisions and can do more for students. This has been incredible, Bill. Our work together with this, it's been great. So what you'll see on the slide in front of you are also some pictures of our students in working with some of the strategies. So the slide you have printed on paper has a few more pictures. So they are color-coded. It's how I function. So the pictures in green are engagement. So you have a student with flexible seating that we have throughout the district. Thank you to that grant, the mindfulness grant. Yay, Fern. You're getting lots of shout-outs today. We also have students making solar ovens. on the right-hand side in the green, very fun. In the blue, we have action and representation. So we have in the bottom left 2 students that are working in Canva. That's an online website that students can use. Really fun and somewhat addictive, so the kids love it. They were working together. One student was showing another one his work on research that he had done and created a new visual for that. And then in the upper right, a student was showing her green screen production that she had done working with the 13 colonies. It's a little fantasy abstract. She got it. In the upper right, we have representation. So we have 2 students that are working together with multiplying fractions and using manipulatives to do that. They're really cool transparencies. And then above, we have a teacher that was using audio visuals and a student that was using a different audio visual to learn that tool as well. Then the slide you have in front of you that's printed is really how we worked UDL through our school this year. So we have the Child Talk form that you saw in front of you with the description, and then below that, the arrow points down to our successes and what we've learned from that. So the common language that you've heard Bill speak about earlier at the beginning of the presentation was definitely what we're hearing from across the board. More teachers are using this language, and when we have conversations about student concerns, this common language is coming up more and more and more. And the data conversation is more common, and it's becoming more student-focused and less personal. But it's really powerful. And okay, and we have more awareness of our own teacher-educator pedagogy. And that's fantastic because that's where the shift is going to happen, and this is where we're going to see more progress in our students moving forward. In team growth, we had additional staff join the team, and in fact, we had a 50% growth this year in team participation, and that was fantastic. So we fine-tuned the focus of our instructional purpose moving forward. So this coming year, we will continue with instructional rounds and also really intentionally focus our goal into setting the instructional purpose and objective of our goals of every single lesson moving forward. We've invigorated the drive of UDL implementation, and we've reevaluated and enriched our discussion. So by having 50% of our committee be new, we've had brand new discussions, and it's encouraged the people that knew UDL really, really well to redefine and reinvigorate these conversations all over again. It's really cool. So we offered a service learning project this year that was brand new. So it was offered to everyone. And the people that accepted the opportunity were people that were not on the committee. And the title of the book was UDL, Dive into UDL, focusing on immersive practices to develop expert learners. And it has been incredible. And one of the biggest focuses was a discussion in shifting the role of the teacher, because the role of the educator has shifted dramatically, specifically over the last 10 years, but specifically in the last 5, from the role of the knowledge giver to the role of the facilitator of the knowledge. So we're no longer standing in front of the room and delivering the knowledge to our students. They need to facilitate, the educator facilitates how to learn, which is exactly what we're saying. The students need to be engaged and then continue to persevere and learn to regulate themselves. That's what we've been saying all night. So that was a huge piece of our discussion, so that teachers can learn that is the shift and the morph that needs to happen first. So all of those participants have expressed an interest in joining the committee next year, which is a bonus for our team. And then a piece that Heather will be psyched to hear is that our last whole hour was about connecting us to Goalbook, which is a wonderful resource that the language arts coordinators have and our special educators have. It's a tool, an online tool, and
it really enlightened the group to the interconnectivity to our roles in the building. And our case managers are an additional resource to the classroom teachers for a way for UDL that the teachers were not aware of. And Goalbook is that tool that can help them with that. And the language arts coordinators also have this tool. So thank you to Heather for that. That was gigantic, and Kim for helping us make that happen. So
I think one of my favorite analogies of UDL is the GPS. Have you heard that before, the UDL and GPS? So like all of our drivers, we have a GPS that tells us where we want to go. And we put in where we want to go, and we are offered many options, and we still get there. So some people might take the highway, some people might take the back roads, some people might want to take it slowly and stop at special places along the way, but we all have the same destination in mind. And I think it's a beautiful analogy to what we're trying to do with kids and helping teachers to understand and to be able to bring to fruition. UDL offers and CAST offers so many opportunities for us to increase this awareness. Last year, Marsha and I had the opportunity to participate in the Leadership Academy, which brings together UDL leaders from the state. And they also have a coaching academy, and one of our teachers had the opportunity to present at that, which was really wonderful. So we so appreciate having CAST to support us, and we are looking forward to another great year as we move forward. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. We have the Merrimack Middle School next.
Good evening. Oh, was this on? Yes, it was. I'm Nicole Diggins. I'm the Language Arts Coordinator at the middle school, and I am one of the co-facilitators of our UDL cohort. And I'm joined with Kristen Peterson, 8th grade social studies teacher extraordinaire and member of our cohort. And we are in our 4th year working with CAST and specifically with Bill. And we are also a learning hub. We are one of the learning hub schools in the district. And as part of that, we have certain kind of objectives that we need to try to strive for as a cohort. One of them is Instructional Rounds, which Reed Sperry did a wonderful job of really highlighting what that process is about. And we have engaged consistently in well, I shouldn't say consistently. Last year was a little tough. But we have engaged in Instructional Rounds at least 3 out of our 4 years working with Bill. And this year we took on kind of a next step, which is Lesson Design Studio. And we thought we'd talk a little bit about that with you today. It's another protocol that CAST has lent us, and I'll turn it over to Kristen.
Thank you, Nicole. Hi, everyone. I'm really happy to be here tonight on behalf of everybody at MMS working on this UDL committee. I am one voice that is representing many brains at work. So we thought we would tell you a little bit about a different aspect of the UDL protocols that has been incredibly informative and was really fun for us this year. After we engaged in Instructional Rounds, which you heard the elementary schools talk about, we were very much so realizing there was a common trend in our data. We saw that students were receiving resources from many different angles, from in many different contexts, multiple medias, and either we're not using them or we're not using them correctly. So as we looked at our problem of practice, it led us into our UDL Lesson Design Studio task. And our goal was to create a lesson that we'd be able to use and then observe amongst the team, the cohort team, and then hopefully debrief and come up with some strategies to be able to address it. But first, you're probably wondering, what is Lesson Design Studio and how does it work? So I'm going to hand it back to Nicole.
So Lesson Design Studio is an approach to collaborative lesson planning, so we can all kind of come together as educators. It honors our individual experiences, but we're able to recognize ours and others' variability and grow as designers in UDL together, which is it's a really great way to go forward because it can be very intimidating to be reflective of your practice. And so sharing that is very helpful. It provides us with a protocol, which is always helpful to keep us on task because we can sometimes just kind of get stuck in the weeds of things. So the protocol supports us to set goals, share our lessons, and use tools for probing design. And then we can solicit feedback from our teammates and then kind of figure out how we might inform that design and make changes. There is, this is a very kind of brief overview on the slide of the protocol itself. Essentially, we set a goal, which Kristen shared what our goal was. And then we describe a lesson, or design and describe a lesson, and Kristen will be telling you a little bit about what our lesson was. And then we choose and use a tool for the actual design process, which we use the lesson design protocol, but journey mapping is another protocol as well. And you actually have evidence we journey mapped, that's what that very complicated with Post-its and dots. Bill loves dots and Post-its and color coding too. And so that is evidence of the journey map that we did after to reflect on the lesson. So we actually used both protocols, the design protocol to start and the journey mapping to reflect. And then we following observation and lesson implementation, we share out kind of what our experience was, and then we incorporate that feedback to redesign the lesson, which we had an opportunity to redesign and kind of implement as we went a little bit. So I'll let Kristen talk about that.
Sure. Yeah. Let me tell you what we did. We decided that our focus would be on asking the question, how are classrooms and our instruction designed to support students to recognize, reflect on, and use tools to support future learning? So coming back again to those resources. We feel like we're really throwing them many different options, I think no more so than the last few years, and really not getting that sense of realization that they're there or the correct utilization of them. So with that focus in mind, our cohort designed a learning activity that we titled The Mystery of the Footloose Fleas. And it was a fictional mystery that really ended up becoming a bit of a research-based assignment. So the students read this fictional mystery. You can see a few of our MMS staff members were the possible suspects involved in this. And each possible suspect, ranging from our new assistant principal to our principal, health teacher, and our school resource officer, all had information in their stories about who they were, where they were from, that the students had to essentially vet. And through that process, we were giving them multiple resources to use. And so as we designed this, we then also were implementing it with the rest of the team members coming in and conducting observations. So it really was kind of like a science experiment, if you think about it. We had our kind of control variables, and then we had a testable hypothesis we were working with. It was amazing because the students really were very engaged with the mystery itself. It was a bit of a challenge. Who committed this mystery, this crime, and gave Norma Jean fleas was our question. And they were really dead set on finding that out. What they were less engaged with was the front-loaded portion of that, the explanation of resources that were available to them, some examples of how they could tackle things, the teacher-led think aloud and modeling of how they could begin these tasks. Those were the things that through that journey mapping that you saw Nicole talk about, we realized right away were the problems that the places where we were losing our kids. So going forward, I think our takeaways are, we would really, first of all, like to see how we can continue to redesign this. It could become a really powerful tool or blueprint, I should say, for other teachers or teaching teams to really work on how can we show kids the types of resources that we're offering that can help them access their learning. And what happens when you make this choice versus a different choice with those resources and those materials. So as we go forward, we're going to hopefully also look to scale out. We're excited about some of the new feedback and interest in the UDL levels of engagement, we're calling it, in our school. So hopefully we'll have a lot more to share with you next school year.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. We'll turn to our high school. Christine, I hope your slide is next.
Hi, I'm Christine Reynard. Oh, thank you. Okay. And I'm just one of the two co-facilitators that we have at the high school. Unfortunately, Naomi Halverson is ill with COVID and not able to be with us today. But we're in our third year of working with Bill, and we actually repeated our second year after having a remote year and missing out on a lot of instructional rounds. So we went through the process again, and I just have a short summary here for you so you can see what we've been up to this year. Like all of the other teams, we're most interested in, especially at the high school level, how to provide multiple means of engagement, how to use multiple means of representation and action and expression, the guidelines from UDL. This is our high school. So this was the first time that all the teachers at our high school and all of our support staff had a training on the basics of UDL, and Bill provided some workshops during our professional development days, and that was very useful, very helpful to familiarize people with the vocab of UDL and what we were doing in the high school setting as a team. Then we had a network meeting in September, and then we met to decide on what we would work on this year at the high school. We are big fans of instructional rounds at the high school. We love to go into different content area classes, and this is probably one of the most popular techniques at the high school because it's fascinating for math teachers to see what English teachers do and social studies teachers to see what science teachers do. We get very good participation, and that will be a major way of sharing cross-knowledge across the content areas. Then we revised our implementation plan. We went to another network meeting, and because we have so few subs this year and we have so many people with different obligations on different schedules, we spread out our observation window to classrooms to a 2-week period. And that was easier for people to use their prep periods or other periods available to them to go in and to observe another classroom. It took some of the pressure away. Instead of having to go through it a whole day, they could teach their classes and then take another period to go and observe a different class. We started creating a resource, online resource module for all of the teachers at our school, which we're slowly adding to piece by piece. We've been pretty immersed in NEASC this week, and we were able to sort of tie together 2 of the questions asked of us of NEASC with what we're doing with UDL. When we did a survey of all of our students, students indicated they would like more choice in how to demonstrate their knowledge and engage with curricula, and that's a very UDL sort of philosophical way of looking at things, that you don't all have to be answering and showing your knowledge in one way. And then our growth plan is that students need opportunities, tools, and scaffolding for self-reflection. We found that students are used to taking reflection and feedback from teachers, but that we haven't done enough, as much as we would like to do, to develop student self-reflection and self-monitoring. So that's another big area of push at the high school. This is the standards for accreditation we're working on right now with NEASC, and they tie very well and easily into UDL goals. In the next year, we want to look at our instructional practices. We're really interested in differentiation because at the high school level, there's a lot of content embedded, and teachers feel stressed about getting through all the content. We also discovered that we need to use a lot more formative assessment. We tend to be quite reliant on summative assessment at the high school. We want to do more organizing of group learning within the classroom setting, rather than just the science labs and certain other projects. And we want to provide additional support and alternative strategies within the regular classroom through our learning support department. We have some action steps in mind. We've started the first couple. We're working on the shared folder system. The next step is to train the staff in the lesson design protocol that the middle school told you a little bit about. And then to expand instructional rounds, we have a lot of other classrooms to get to, and to continue growth on the implementation of those rounds. We're represented by just about every department in the high school, and we've been lucky because people have stayed with us, so we've had the same team for 3 years, and we look forward to continuing our work in the next year. And special thanks to Bill for all of his help at the high school.
So I want you to bear with us because we just have about 30 more minutes. I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
Part 2 of the UDL
Part
intro.
2 of UDL. We started off by saying, okay, if each school does 3 minutes, then we'll be done in 20 minutes, and we can't possibly contain the excitement around this. And I hope that you know, this is a long presentation, and however, you can just see the excitement and the impacts. So we're curious for you. I just wanted to reiterate before questions come, if any, that there's 2 other behind-the-scene efforts that are going on with the UDL. Aside from the professional development, ongoing professional development for staff, we bring all the facilitators together. We've brought them together twice this year, and they all share out what they're doing and get ideas from one another, and then it just becomes this big, great brain trust where we're sharing, and then we're saying, well, that really worked well at that school, and that worked well at this school, so this really, really big capacity growing. The other is so that's the kind of how we're scaling up. The other is that the accountability piece. So the district leadership team has come together on 2 occasions with the language arts coordinators to look at the data that was received from each of the schools. And we have a 2 to 3 year trend of data that's been collected. And we've been able to identify what we're doing well as a district and also identify focus areas for the future. So
it's a lot of sticky notes.
So I'm sure either of us are willing to entertain questions, or if you have questions for anybody in the team. Thank you.
Questions from the board?
Just have one comment. So I think this is really focused work, and I want to thank all the teachers who worked all day today, and then they come here at night and they do the presentation. And I really liked all the enthusiasm they had for student learning, and you know, and the honesty of Christine talking about, you know, the high school needs more formative assessments. Like, that's what we need to hear. That's helps us to make better informed decisions too. So thank everyone. And then just like last year, I always have to say something to Nikki Diggins because she was one of my all-star students. So I'm so proud that she's a teacher coming back to Merrimack and that she's such a dedicated leader. So all of you, but just as a former student, that's great.
Yeah, and I'm just super impressed, and such great work, and already been done, and will continue to be. And the thing I'm probably the most impressed with is just the buy-in, which is arguably the hardest part for a faculty, right? I mean, I can't tell you how many day 1 professional development meetings I've been in where my eyes have glazed over with the newest initiative that no one cares about. But this is clearly something we see a need for and we value, and that just speaks so much about like where this is going to go. Just great work. Awesome.
I have a kind of a specific question for the middle school team. I appreciate the honesty about the pushback from the students and the lack of interest in using available resources, and your ability or your desire to really address that. And I loved the mystery plan. That was awesome. But to address it with the how, you need to know the why. So what is the why happening right now in the middle school that they are not as engaged in the resources available for them?
Well, Kristen kind of articulated it. That was one of the findings when we did the journey map of the mystery lesson. We noticed that part of the observation process with Lesson Design Studio is the classroom teacher identifies 1 or 2 students that they really want you to track. It's not necessarily a student whom can't do it or would really struggle, but just somebody that maybe is kind of on the borderline, and this might be one of those activities where they might struggle but have the capacity to succeed. So part of the observation process is when the lesson is over, those individual students that we track, we ask them, what was the high point of the lesson for you and what was the low point of the lesson for you? And that was represented in the journey mapping, where we actually put dots where it was a high point and dots where it was a low point. And so what we found was that, and this gets to the why piece, is that the low point, and this is obviously one factor amongst possibly many, but it stood out to us that a low point for a lot of the students was the front loading. And that's where we're giving all of the directions, and we're giving the scenario, and we're giving the resources. And so they've somewhat disengaged in the most pivotal part of the lesson for their success. And so that would lead us to conclude that sometimes they're not accessing the resources, because when we're explaining what resources they're supposed to be using, they're not focused at that particular moment in time. And so for us, and Kristen kind of alluded to it, was, our takeaway is, well, how do we maybe redesign that instructional opportunity, redesign the introduction of that lesson, so that, do we embed that piece somewhere else? Do we start them, kind of just throw the mystery at them and have them kind of dive in and say, oh, well, what would help you figure out how to solve this? What resources might you want to use? So I think that's where a lesson design studio can really help you look at that problem of practice and kind of come to some of those potential factors that are contributing to the problem.
I don't want to say anything that takes a really long time. I just want to say that this is exciting, and I love to see how engaged all of you are with implementing this. And as someone who's not an educator, just recognizing the sheer amount of work that seems to be going into this behind the scenes, and that's awesome. And I'm really excited to see where we are with it even next year and going forward. So thank you.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone who came. We appreciate hearing from you tonight, and all the teams, all the schools, seeing what you're doing and how you are taking this really important step in working with the next generation.
And we will put this PowerPoint up onto our district website for parents at home. Thank you.
All right, we're going to move on to the next agenda item, Merrimack Hawks request. Kim Green.
I don't have any nifty PowerPoint presentations, but I do want to first introduce myself. My name is Shannon Rand. I live on Blair Road in Merrimack. I am currently the board member at large in Merrimack for the Merrimack Hawks. 4 years prior to that, I was the president of the organization. My kids have moved on from cheerleading. However, my passion, because I'm still a coach, is something that I bring to the board, and I wanted to continue on. I'll have you introduce yourself.
Hello, my name is Shannon Herman. I live on Dahl Road, and I am the program administrator for the Merrimack Hawks. I'd like to say thank you to the school board. It's really interesting to sit here and watch you in person after watching so many meetings virtually. So thank you for the effort and the time that you put in for our students. And then I don't blame all the educators for leaving, because, wow, it's a really late night for them.
It is.
But it was wonderful to hear from them as well. As part of the National Pop Warner organization, the mission of the Merrimack Hawks is to provide a volunteer-run, non-for-profit youth cheerleading program with the highest quality instruction at the lowest cost possible to the Merrimack community. Our program fosters the love of the sport in an environment where academics and athletics are equally important, and the spirit of community service is at our core. Our teams have won state, national, and global titles, and our athletes have competed throughout the East Coast. Our goals for tonight are to become an allied partner with the Merrimack School Board, explain our specific requirements for gym space, and encourage continued partnership from our cheerleaders and volunteer efforts from the Merrimack School District going forward. I'd like to turn things back over to Shannon Rand to discuss in more detail.
I kind of laugh because both Shannons are here today. It's not a very common name. But I also want to thank you for the opportunity to speak in front of the board tonight. Before I begin, I'd like to just talk a little bit about practice space requirements. Lori, I know that you have been in cheer for a very long time, but to level the playing ground for all those on the board, I want to explain some of the things that go on with running an organization such as big as ours. We need storage, 7 large mats. These large mats are about 6 feet tall. They range about 3.5 feet in diameter. They can take up a lot of space. It's very important that our cheerleaders are safe while they are cheerleading. And Pop Warner and nationally, they require mats to be laid down. That's 7 mats going across. This can take up to 42 by 54 feet in diameter and length. So we need a large facility such as gym space. The ceiling height has to be 20 feet tall. Our cheerleaders fly through the air. And last but not least, they need heat and they need bathrooms because the practices go from anywhere from an hour and a half to 2.5 hours based on the age requirements of their sport. Sorry, I had to put breathe in there because sometimes I can talk really fast and provide a lot of information. Just to talk a little bit about our program, we are a year-round program. We start in the late summer and we continue all throughout the year volunteering. You've probably seen us at doing the school board backpack challenge where we bring notebooks, pens, pencils to many of the schools in our town. We also help beautify lawns. We do the Earth Cleanup Day for the Wasserman Park. We do a lot here within Merrimack. At one point in time, in 2018, the school board recognized all of our volunteer efforts, and they awarded us an award for all the volunteering that we did. This year, we're expected to continue to grow with 120 athletes, 21 coaches, and 11 board members. We are forced to be reckoned with, which means we have 7 teams. That means 2 to 3 practices a week per team, an hour and a half to 2.5 hours of practice, meaning that's 42 hours of practice space per week. Why should you support us in becoming an allied partner with the Merrimack Hawks? For one, we do give back to the school every single year, and we will continue to do so. It's just a part of who we are. Our ages, we have just started a new program with preschool. It's going to be coming out 3 to 5, all the way up to the age of 17. And many of our athletes move on to high school doing cheer there as well. Our oldest athletes even become mentors. My children especially have been part of that mentor program. They provide countless hours, something that they can put on job resumes. Also, they can put into the college resumes as well. It provides them scholarship opportunities from other schools, showing all the volunteer hours that they do. It doesn't have to be just cheerleading. My oldest creates t-shirts for the kids who are doing it to help offset the cost for our Merrimack residents. Scholarship opportunities do not just stop at the Merrimack Hawks. We also have Pop Warner, where every single year students are recognized for all their volunteer hours and their scholastics. And they're awarded scholarships to go to college. This year is the first year we're going to be doing a Jennifer LaFawn scholarship. She is one of our coaches that passed away, and we're going to be presenting that to a senior high school student who has been cheerleading for the Hawks organization. And not only that, we have many and countless all-star recognition that our students have acquired such great scholastic standing while they're cheerleading. The reason why we're here today, again, is to ask for us to become an allied part of the school board in allowing us to have equal representation using the schools. In 2017, I worked tirelessly, as you can tell I'm tired, with Mark. He allowed us the opportunity to use the space along with other sports teams to cheer. he was great about, okay, what are you allowed to, where are you allowed to cheer? He talked about the requirements that we needed. At this time, the Merrimack School District has one school that is available to us. I know that sounds kind of strange, but the elementary schools don't have the space for our mats. The middle school has mats that we are allowed to use. I know that JMU's has cheer mats. However, those are sanctioned underneath another organization. And because of insurance reasons, we are not allowed to use that. The middle school allows us to do 2 teams at once. There's a huge mat or tarp that comes between the 2, and we're allowed to use that simultaneously at the same time, allowing the taxpayers to have multiple sides of using that gym space. All we're asking for is an equal opportunity to other allied organizations that are using the same space at the same time. Have I forgotten anything?
No, I think that's it. I think just understanding the unique need for our space, that, other sports that don't have requirements of the equipment need that we have. I mean, these mats are massive and, really require the height. That's another important piece where we need to keep our athletes safe, and we're continuing to grow and create this amazing program here in town that's serving so many families, and we just like the opportunity to do that at the lowest cost possible. Because if we don't get gym space through the town, we're forced to rent it elsewhere, and that really has a big impact on our program, and our fundraising dollars are going just to gym space.
We're going to open it up to any questions that the board has. And just, we are curious as the next steps of how to become an allied partner with the school board. Thank you.
Any questions?
We're all tired, I can tell.
Or comments from the board?
I'm curious what you've done in prior years, like where have you've used the middle school some? Have you had to rent space elsewhere? Yes. Like how has that gone for you?
So currently we use Wasserman Park, which is that small.
The function hall?
The function hall, yes.
The one by the
which
playground.
allows us to have one team at a time. So our cheerleaders can be working weekends, but also very late at night. And where we have multiple teams, it gets really inefficient with cost using that space. We've also had to use other cheerleading, more expensive, like E-Celebrity, which is down in Londonderry, so that's quite a haul for many of our athletes to go down there. So anything local is obviously going to be much better on the purse strings of Merrimack residents.
I think it would be helpful, Matt, if you would explain the nature of the agreements between the district and MYA in the use of facilities.
Well, years ago, many years ago.
2005, I believe it was.
That's many years ago.
Yeah.
December 5th, 1968.
Oh, there we go.
We had entered into an agreement with the Merrimack Youth Association to partner with them to provide us with alternatives to physical education programs that were being at school. The MYA takes care of Merrimack kids exclusively, and the board decided to give them preference because there was a partnership there, because they were Merrimack kids only, because at the point in time it was part of a town organization that was funded with tax dollars by the town of Merrimack before the town of Merrimack decided not to do that anymore. I think they still get a small stipend from the town budget, much in the way Parks and Rec would. So they're affiliated with the town of Merrimack, and they take care of Merrimack kids only. So there was an agreement that was inked to perform a partnership with them, and hence, aside from school purposes, like if you had a volleyball game for the high school or middle school, or a basketball game that was from the middle school or high school or whatever, they would become second tier because of this partnership to promote wellness, exercise, and all that. So that's essentially why the partnership was signed. I had heard you say you worked with Mark?
Yes, Mark
Who is-
McLaughlin.
Oh, okay. The assistant superintendent for curriculum on this?
He was the, oh, help me. Pardon me?
As a superintendent or
Yeah,
assistant?
he was the superintendent at the time. Thank you.
Okay.
Actually, it was Marge who was the, sorry.
So
And then it was Mark, and then Mark
It
moved
was
in.
Marge, and then it was Mark.
Yeah, because Mark was already helping us facilitate it with Marge. The second year it worked, and then COVID hit, and it kind of.
See, the issue there is Mark and Marge, I'm not sure, conveyed all that information to
Understandably.
facilities.
Right, understandably.
So there are nice words that can be said. There
Mhm.
are good intentions that can be said. But when you try and operationalize something like this,
Mhm.
you have to talk to facilities. And facilities has a lot of pressure on them from various groups,
Mhm.
MYA, you guys, anybody who wants to use our facilities. We could probably keep them running 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and build 10 more gyms and around, let's see, a couple of turf fields and some play fields, etc. And that still would not satisfy the need that this town has for sports facilities. Now, with this, currently right now, the MYA, John Calabro, I'm sure you know him.
Yes.
He is aware that you are indeed here.
Yep.
And he has requested the J Muse Smith Gym only
For this year or
for this coming year.
Okay, that's wonderful. The reason, again, why we're here is so that the future use, say we have other superintendents, that we become that allied partner, so we won't have any more having he said, she said, Bill needs to catch up, so-and-so. Not saying that you're not going anywhere. I hope you're not going anywhere, Bill. But it's allowing us to bridge that gap. I think from the past 5 years that we've been an organization, we have proven that we are here to help support the school, and that we are going to continue, no matter what this board decides. But we are looking to become that allied partner with the school in any way, shape, and form to help the schools.
So for the short term, in dealing with facilities, the middle school gym would be open to you, but there are times where there are school volleyball games and basketball games. in
And the
month
fact that
of
we can't use the
November.
mats.
Well, when you're having a basketball game, you
Mhm.
can't have other activities going
Right,
on in the
exactly.
gym.
Mhm.
And this is the Merrimack Middle School
Exactly.
basketball game. And your request stems the entire month of October to the end of November, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, from 5 to 9 p.m., which would take the school events. They would have to rent space out of town.
And I don't think we're looking to displace school.
Well, you wanted every single day of the week.
I
That's the
think
way
we're-
the request came across, so
Mhm.
that's what I'm dealing with right now.
I think a lot of it is just we're showing you what we need, and we're looking for as much available space because we do have the 7 teams. We're not, obviously, we have 42 hours that we're trying to look for space. Again, we have other alternatives such as Wasserman Park. We also have ECE, but again, we're just trying to help out with that. Last year, we ran into the problem where that space for the middle school wasn't being used to allow 2 teams at the same time. You did talk about JMUs. Again, we're not allowed to use JMUs because of the mats. They are not owned by us, and they're not a communal property, so our insurance does not allow it.
Yeah.
So our only space is unfortunately the
It's
middle
the
school.
middle school.
And we
Which-
understand
which
sports
you-
for the school does come first.
Yeah, which you have a window into.
Mm-hmm.
But is your intent to work with the existing school sports schedule at the
Absolutely.
middle
Oh,
school? Or you
absolutely.
just want to usurp their utilization of the facility in its entirety?
No,
Because when
absolutely
I
not.
first read the letter, it seemed like you wanted it all.
No, and I think sometimes tone can be taken out of it, and I'm glad we're having this conversation so we can let you know that that is not our intention at all. And I
Okay.
thank you for bringing that to my attention.
Yeah, that's the way I read it.
Okay,
Sorry.
yep. So I appreciate that. So no, that is not our intention.
Yeah, okay. So you said you have 125 kids?
Yes, within our community.
Is your community exclusively Merrimack, or do you have kids from other towns?
We do have kids from other towns, but so does MYA as well.
Okay. How many kids do you have from other towns?
We're in the middle of registration right now. I don't have that number for you.
Okay. If you could get that, I'd appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So at this point, I think the board is going to have to take all this under advisement, given the existing agreements and the existing sports schedule. Because again, even that's going to change year to year to year. So we
Yeah.
can't commit to a set schedule, even for those available days. Like what would happen this year may not be next year. So we still have a facilities negotiation that's going to have to happen every single year. So at this point, we're not going to take a vote or a motion tonight. We're going to take this all under advisement and come back to it on another meeting. And we will stay in
Absolutely.
communication with you.
I appreciate that. That's all we're looking for, is to have that open communication with the board so that we can just work it out before the season begins. Because I know Matt's team works really hard at trying to figure everything out, and I want to get it before we start going into the schools. So this is the reason why we're here.
Have you felt a level of cooperation with our maintenance department in trying to find you space? They've conveyed to me that they have really they have called on your behalf to see if other groups could move to accommodate
Absolutely,
you.
they have called. It's not easy to. It's not black or white, Matt. I'm going to let you know
Yeah,
that
sure.
it's not the facilities. I'm just going to leave it at that. It's not the facilities that is getting in the way.
Okay.
When does the season start?
Our season starts in August 1st. So we use actually field space set by Merrimack. So we use the outdoor facilities because it's warm outside for our kids. The light is still available because sunset doesn't happen till later. And then we have bathrooms on the fields as well. So and that also helps minimize our cost as a program and being non-for-profit.
When do you start mapping out your schedule for the fall of?
It starts September, so
Sure.
we're already asking for facilities. I believe we start July is when they accept requests, July 1st, right, Matt?
Yes, correct.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you for coming tonight.
I appreciate all of you. Thank you, and have a great night.
You too. All right, so we'll do public comment where you can speak on this issue at the end.
On this issue.
At the end, during public comment. You can come speak during public comment on the agenda item. But we'd love to hear from you during that time. So that'll be coming up right after our committee, our other agenda item. Thank you. All right, goal setting meeting. So we covered that. June 28th, Primex, we're working on it. Other, new business. Moving along, policies. Our favorite topic of the day, use of masks by students and staff policy.
Yes, thank you. I had a opportunity to meet with our school nurses last week to discuss the continued need for any mask policy. And at that time, the nurses felt strongly that there is no longer a need for our current mask policy, that it be rescinded, with the understanding that at such point in time in the future, if there is a resurgence of a variant that might cause health concerns, that they will advise me again in terms of whether or not we may need some mask policy. But at the present time and the foreseeable future, even though the numbers are creeping up a little bit nationwide, certainly, at the present time, our numbers are still relatively low. I still check them every week for every school. So I'm going to recommend to you that we rescind the current mask policy and no longer have that as part of our daily operations.
I will entertain a motion for discussion.
You're going to hate me because my discussion comment actually, I thought of my questions before I knew we were going to be here this late. So I don't necessarily want to make a motion to rescind it. Does somebody else want to make that motion?
To
rescind the current mask policy.
Oh, I'll make a motion to rescind.
I'll second it.
Made by Board Member Ken Martin, seconded by Chair Rothaus.
So for discussion, my question was, does it make sense to have sort of an affirmative policy protecting the ability to wear masks? Something along the lines of, nobody's gonna tell people that they can't wear masks. Like masks aren't required, but your teacher can't say, oh, take your mask off. Because I was also reading the policy, and there was language in there about if a teacher chooses to wear a mask, it should, and they're working with students who have difficulty understanding or speaking, that they should wear one with a clear, something clear so that the student can understand. So I was wondering, since I don't want to necessarily tell people, no, you can't wear a mask, and if we don't have something in place that says, yes, you can wear a mask, is that going to be sort of a shift?
May I answer that, Naomi?
Yeah.
It's my intent to send out a communication to parents and to the staff that, given the fact that different variants are still a reality, that we understand that it is a choice of both staff and families to continue to wear a mask at any point in time. It's just that we're to the point, according to the nurses, and I support their recommendations certainly, that I don't think we need to codify that, the when and when not to wear a mask, but my communique would be that you are still certainly allowed and encouraged to wear a mask if that fits your personal preference.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Great.
Any other questions or discussions? Then I'll call for a vote. All those in favor of rescinding the mask policy by students and staff, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Passes 4-0-0.
Oh, thank you very much.
All right. Moving on to acceptance of the minutes. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes of May 2nd, 2022, public and non-public.
I will second.
Motion made by Chair Rothaus, seconded by Board Member Martin. Do I have any questions or discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Passes 4-0-0. All right, consent agenda.
Thank you very much. We have a few nominations, teacher nominations, that I'd like to go through. At the Merrimack Middle School, nominating Marina Nickerson as a special education teacher. At Mastercola Elementary School, nominating Emily Jacey as a grade 4 teacher. At Merrimack Middle School, nominating Jackson Dillard as a special education teacher. At Reed's Ferry School, nominating Megan Chevanel as a guidance counselor, school counselor. At Merrimack High School, nominating Tamara O'Neill as a special education teacher. At Merrimack High School, nominating Patricia Zink as a special education teacher. And at Thorntons Ferry Elementary School, nominating Amy Fine as a special education coordinator, and Savannah Robert as a grade 4 teacher, again at Thorntons Ferry School. I also have some resignations to put forward. At Merrimack Middle School, Stephanie Brand as a speech teacher. At Merrimack Middle School, Alicia Chapman as a phys ed teacher. At Mastercola Elementary School, Carissa Carrier as a grade 4 teacher. And again, at MES, Morgan Ireland as a grade 2 teacher.
Do I have a motion to accept the consent agenda as read into the record?
I will make a motion.
Second.
Moved by Board Member Martin, seconded by Board Member Halter. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Passes 4-0-0. Moving on to other committee reports.
I did the building and planning, I already talked about it, so we're all set.
It wasn't a committee. I went to 2 trainings by the New Hampshire School Boards Association over the last 2 weeks. I'm not going to say much about them because it's 10 o'clock at night. But one of them was the new board member orientation, and the other one was actually today. It was called Making a Difference in the Boardroom, and they did like the habits of highly effective board members, and they were both great. I'm really happy I did them. I'd love to do more, so I just wanted to share that with everybody.
And it's really nice to have those as webinars. All right, correspondence.
I had 2 people that were MYA people that reached out to support our contract with the MYA.
And I had a couple folks reach out regarding the discipline policy as well.
All right, comments from the board.
I just indulge me for a moment. This Thursday at 6:30 is the final concert of Pat Cunningham, who has been teaching here for 36 years and has established a line of musical legacy that really is unparalleled in New Hampshire in many ways. So you should absolutely go check that out this Thursday at 6:30 at Merrimack High School.
And I'm hoping that we could maybe invite the Granite State Challenge team to maybe the next meeting and do a rerun of what we did tonight. I think that was a lot of fun.
Yes.
Can I invite them? All of them are in my chemistry class.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Any other comments? All right, now public comments on agenda items. Oh. There we go. Don't want to lose that. Yes.
50 years ago, I founded the MYA. So I know a little bit about the organization.
I appreciate that, and because that's important, will you say your name and address for us?
My name is Paul Goodridge. I live at 68 Wire Road, Merrimack.
Thank you.
I served on the Merrimack School Board for 9 years, so I'm very familiar with the business that you have to conduct. My recommendation is that you do not become involved in scheduling individual activities of the MYA. The MYA was founded on the basis of being the sole provider for youth programs. And you have a relationship with the MYA, and that's all you need. The cheerleaders, I appreciate the problem. I was very involved in the establishment of Smith Gym. It was put in after the bond issue had been passed. And we modified the bond issue, we modified the plans to include Smith Gym at that time. And as you realize, it has become a very important part of Merrimack facilities. And I agree with Matt, too bad we don't have more room for more gyms. I appreciate the problems of scheduling that the girls have. There are so many programs going on, and it's been a challenge for the MYA over the last 50 years to provide those facilities. But that's their problem, not yours. And you don't want to become involved in scheduling all of the youth activities for the Merrimack Association. So I recommend that you not get involved in the scheduling of cheerleading. Any questions you want to ask me? Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry, girls.
You're fine. It's an opinion. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Anyone else?
So we're gonna, oh, Chuck.
Chuck Mower, 4 Depot Street. We each have our various responsibilities that we have to undertake on behalf of the public. Mine is, I'm the guy, the only guy, that has to get up and defend the budget. And I take that very seriously. I appreciate that there's a great demand for all of our facilities in Merrimack. We lack meeting space and so forth. But it is important that we jealously guard the conduct of our business in the school district so as to not be engaged in unanticipated difficulties or consequences by an emotional reaction, to want to supply all that we can. It is a business. You have a great deal of sobriety ahead of you in addressing those things that are important as you deliberate them. And I would highly recommend that this is an entanglement that is probably not in our best interests at this time.
Hello, my name is Shannon Rand. I live on Blair Road in Merrimack. I do appreciate everything the MYA has done for our community. I am asking again just to become an allied partner. Some things to consider. I was looking at the MYA agreement. There are some things that I have questions about. I'm not sure who I need to talk to that about, but I will reach out probably to you, Matt, for facility questions and the expiration of those documents in 2009. So I have questions about that. But again, we are just looking for equal space. That's what we're looking for. We've done it before in the past, and I believe it can be done if all partners work. Basketball with the MYA, outside basketball, lacrosse, whatever the teams are being used for, but I think there is some need to relook at that. It was made, this agreement, back in 2005 when Merrimack was just an itty-bitty town, and we've grown. So again, I'm looking to make equal partnership with all nonprofit organizations, including the MYA. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Just one other consideration. When we got permission from the school board to use the facilities back in 1968, they put one caveat on that permission, and that is we had to have insurance. We formed the Merrimack Association to provide that insurance, where the Merrimack Association was the insured. And I assume that you still require any organization using the facilities to have adequate insurance. Is that
Have a
correct, Matt?
certificate, yeah.
Okay.
All right. Any other public comments? All right. I will take a motion for adjourning to our non-public session.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 We're moving to non-public.
We are moving to non-public in the Merrimack TV training room. Thank you and good night.